Okay, good morning all. Right, so today we'll focusing on agile development and project management again because last time we were focusing more on computer networks and UXD. But today's main focus is agile because we want to do 4 topics today. That means at the end of today's session, half of the agile software development syllabus will be over. Okay, half of the syllabus because we have 10 topics. Uh, so that means we get more time for the other topics in the future. Okay. Right. Our second topic is agile principle. Right. Agile principles. Again, the note is available. Second note topic, the UCSC. Of course, now you should be able to access UCSC notes as well. Our note. But third and fourth, we have a combined note. Okay, we have combined note. UCSC also they have given a combined note. Then the fifth UCSC note and our note. Okay, right. So let's first finish agile principles. Okay, agile principles. So remember in the introduction to agile software development, we discussed agile development is an iterative approach, and of course the most widely adopted approach right now. So one of the biggest difference between agile approach with previous iterative approaches, that is, we have philosophy. The way we look at software development is philosophically different in agile development. So therefore, earlier software development methods were more focusing on how to do these tasks, how, right? The sequence of the task, planning of the task. But in agile development, yes, still we are interested in how are we going to do it. But at the same time, we are very much focusing on how do we look at software development, the philosophy, okay, culture. So this topic is all about that. Rather than we focusing on the process, we look at how do we look at software development. It's more into your attitude, right? Attitude, your philosophical way of looking at software development. Some principles. Right. So the other thing is these agile principles, of course, we discussed related to software development. These are part of, these are not isolated concepts. So you know that uh, there's a human civilization is evolving. So there's a word called modernization, නූතනත්වය. Modernization. එතකොට මේ modernization වෙන්නේ නැති අයට තමයි අපි කියන්නේ traditional කට්ටිය. නේද? අපි ඔය සිංහලෙන් කියන්නේ බයියෝ කියලා. So that means they don't evolve. ඒගොල්ලෝ evolve වෙන්නේ නැහැ. ඒගොල්ලෝ පරණ විදියටම ඉන්නවා. හරි පරණ විදියටම ඉන්නවා. So therefore these concepts are part of modernization. Right? Adapted from modernization, the Western civilization, and some management concept from Japan, South Korea, and some other Southeastern Asian countries, and so on. Okay. Right. So let's look at not all the agile concepts because we are not going to discuss so many concepts, but we are going to look at only some key concepts. Okay. Right. So remember, agile principles are the values and best practices. Like values, because all our characters are built on top of the values. So you behave differently from me because your values may be different from my values. Okay. So these are all about the values and some best practices rather than focusing on how do we do it, because your values shape up how do you perform things. That is the idea. Right. So these are some of the key agile values. Obviously, the agility, that is flexibility. That is why we call it agile development. Then simplicity, leanness, openness, adaptive planning, customer focus. So there are so many other, but so sort of essential agile values. Okay. So those are the values. So then some principles. So that means the concepts that we use in understanding, focusing on our work. Variability and uncertainty, prediction and adaptation, validated learning, work in progress, WIP, progress, performance. So basically, how do you look at these things? How do you measure progress? How do we measure performance? Right? How do we predict and adapt? How do we look at the variability of the things and uncertainty? Right? So that is what we are going to discuss because this is the philosophical aspect, principles. Right. So let's take one by one because these things we have already discussed in the first day, right? Agile values. So we value simplicity. We value leanness. Leanness means we do only essential things. We don't do unnecessary ceremonial things, time wasters. We are very open within the team about any issues, problems, and we are very open with the customer, right? We are not two opponents, rather we collaborate. So it's our success. If the product is success, it's your success, our success. Customer success, our success. If fail, we both fail, right? So then adaptive planning. Don't do too much of planning. Right? Planning is important, but too much of planning is a trap. It's a curse. And take your decisions as a team, software development team, focus on customers' needs. Don't do what you like, do what customer really need. Don't do what is convenient for you, do what the customers think about the customer's success. Because this is a collaborative journey. So we want to work with customers long term, not just get their project, get their money and forget about it, them and look for some other customers. Okay. By doing marketing. No, that is not the approach in agile development. Okay. Right. So we have already discussed these things. So therefore, let's focus on these key agile principles, not the values. Values now you should understand. Okay. Right. So let's take one by one. Actually, the rest of this topic is looking at these uh, six agile principles. Right. Six agile principles. So the first one is variability and uncertainty. So what is that? Right. So maybe you can understand what is uncertainty, but what is variability? So variability means things can change, which is a reality. Because some people, they don't accept it as a reality. They think the things should not change. Right? Things should not change. No, but that is not the reality. The reality is things can change, especially in very dynamic competitive world. So we accept it as a reality. For us, variability is a realistic thing, not a uh, something that surprises us. Okay, so that is called variability. Accept it and plan for it because variability is not always bad. Sometimes variability is good. For example, why customer requests a change? That is a variation, right? That change is request because that is going to better affect the customer's business, his business process. So then we accept it as a reality. Okay. So that is what is meant by embrace helpful variability. And of course, we need to adapt to that. How do we adapt to that? The main approach is go for iterative and incremental development. So that is why we go for cyclic development so that we have the more potential to absorb changes. right? Absorb changes. And also we can adapt to the changes through inspection, adaptation, and transparency cycles. And at the same time, whenever there's a variability changes, there's uncertainty. So variability and uncertainty are highly related. When there's a variability, there's uncertainty. So we want to reduce uncertainty. We need to accept the variability, but at the same time, we want to reduce uncertainty. So how to do that? How to do both, right? Accepting the variability and at the same time simultaneously reduce uncertainty. So those are the challenges for agile development teams, right? So we'll look at some of these sub concepts related to variability and uncertainty, right? Embrace helpful variability. What is mean by that? So that means variability is not always bad. Sometimes variability is necessary, sometimes variability is for better, make things better. Right? For example, variability is not all about requirement changes. Say we change the way we do it, we improve the way we do it. So that's a good variability, right? So we do the second iteration, second sprint better process than the first sprint. So that variability is good, right? So your product is getting more and more features. That's a variability. You improve the quality of the product more and more. That is good variability. So therefore, variability, you can look at it as a good thing, positive thing. So embrace helpful variability. Right. So the next sub point about the variability and uncertainty is what? Iterative and incremental development. So how do we tackle variability? One thing is we go for iterative and incremental development so that we have a better chance of absorbing changes, right? Absorbing changes, doing changes, right? So that is why we go for small time box cycles, right? Short time box cycle so that we can absorb more and more changes. We can do more and more changes because there's another cycle, another cycle, another cycle. If it is one big cycle and finish it, maybe after 1 year, 2 year, so then there's no room for improvements, no room for absorb changes. That is why we go for iterations. For example, now you have semester base, right? Semester one, semester two. But when I did my degree programs, we never had semesters. We had first year, second year, third year. So after 1 year, we had exams, not after 6 months. So now we can see it's not only software development, right? So this is a normal concept that we use in modern world, right? So don't think these things as things only we software developers do, right? So then we can absorb requirement changes, we can add value to the product incrementally, and very importantly, it facilitate feedback. So when we get feedback only, we can do improvements. So that is why we have the retrospective meetings, sprint reviews, right? At the end of each iteration or sprint. So these things facilitate variability and uncertainty. Right. So then why do we time box? Remember, time box cycles, short time box cycle. So what is mean by time box? So time box means when we set deadlines, we don't extend it. So when we say there's a release in every 4 week, say 3 week, it's 3 week. So it's not going to drag into the somewhere here. No. If it is end of say 25th, say the release is 25th Friday, the release must be given 25th Friday, not Monday or following Friday. So that means you are eroding into the next iteration, right? Because the natural tendency is, as humans, we tend to extend deadlines, right? Tend to extend deadlines because they think, okay, we have not finished that yet. So let's extend the deadline and finish it. That is the normal human mindset, right? We have planned for these things, but we have not finished it. So therefore, let's extend it. But Agile principle says, don't extend it. Yes, you have planned for 4 tasks, but you have finished only 3 things. So then release those 3 things. Maybe you can take the fourth thing into the next iteration because we have not fully committed about the next iteration yet. Still, actually, we have not planned the next iteration of completed, finalize the next iteration yet. So then we can absorb the next task or the other user story to the next iteration. So because everywhere we are flexible. So that is very important. So that is what is meant by time boxing. Time boxing. Don't extend deadlines. Rather, be flexible about the deliverables. So you don't have hard and fast deliverables, hard and fast uh, deadlines. Sorry, deadlines are deadlines, but not hard and fast uh, commitments. So we are flexible on that, but we are not flexible on the deadlines. Okay, so that is called time boxing. So otherwise, your first iteration will drag forever. Okay. So it forces you to prioritize things because you know that it's short period. So then you always think about what are the high priority things that we want to do in the first iteration, next iteration. It demonstrates the progress. Otherwise, it doesn't demonstrate the progress. So now you need to tell, okay, this is our deadline. What have you delivered? Otherwise, the deadline extends and no one knows what you have done after for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. And also, when the deadline extends, or when you think that you can extend the deadline, you tend to do perfectionism, or you tend to make things perfect, right? Because you know that I can extend the deadline. So maybe I will fix this bug also. Maybe I want to do it a little bit better. But that is again a trap. So, okay, because when you try to make things perfect, it added to the cost. It delays things. And when you have time boxing, it's motivate to close things. So you must start, do, close. Start, do, close. Start, do, close. Otherwise, you start, sometimes don't do, or start, keep doing, but you never close. You never close. Right? And also when you have deadlines, it's more predictable things because you know exactly there's a release, there's a release in another 3 months, sorry, another 3 weeks, another 3 weeks, there's another release. So we know we can measure the progress, right? There's a much more better predictability. Okay. So those are very, very important. Short, time boxed. Don't extend deadlines. Rather, negotiate with your priorities and other things. Okay. And do agile plan. So don't plan all these iterations upfront. Rather, at the end of this one, only you finalize the plan for the next iteration. So then there's a flexibility to take some tasks from here to there and so on. Okay, fine. So that is called time boxing. So all these concepts are related to what? Variability and uncertainty. මේ ඔක්කොම කරන්නේ මේ variability and uncertainty කියන එක tackle කරන්න. Okay, right. So we all discuss about this iterative and incremental development. So it facilitates us to go for time boxing, prioritize things, get early feedbacks, think about the reflection about the things and improve retrospection. Okay. Right. So the next concept related to variability and uncertainty is leverage variability through inspection, adaptation, and transparency. So these are just concepts, right? So it's more exploratory approach. Exploratory, right? We inspect, right? Adapt and get feedback and so on. So that is transparency. So it's sort of a evolutionary process. Cyclic, iterative, and evolutionary. And there should be very good transparency within the team, with the team and the customer. Of course, the product owner is part of your team. Okay, so therefore it's within the team because product owner is also part of the team. And you take your decisions, discuss things very openly, no hidden agendas. Okay, right. So remember, we embrace variability. At the same time, we want to reduce uncertainty. So we must conscious about uncertainty because uncertainty is something we don't like, right? Something we don't like. But at the same time, uncertainty is a realistic thing, but we want to minimize it. So how do you minimize? First of all, you need to understand what kind of uncertainties are there in your project, right? So we can identify three type of uncertainties. What are those? What uncertainty, how uncertainty, who uncertainty. So identify these uncertainties first, then you can tackle it. So what uncertainty means? Another name is N uncertainty. So uncertainty about what is the real result or what is the real expectation. So that is called what uncertainty. That maybe you are still not very sure about the user story. So if you have a little bit, if you have any doubts about the requirements, what is the expectation? So that is what uncertainty. So make sure before start doing it, developing it, designing it, reduce this, eliminate it. That is why you need to communicate with your product owner, get things clarified. That is why he or she is part of your team. Reduce that what uncertainty. You can talk to that person or any other team member. So the second one is how uncertainty. So that is uncertainty about how to do it. How to, because something can be done in so different ways. Right? So maybe uncertainty related to the process, uncertainty related to the use of technology, uncertainty about the architecture. So if you have any of these things, make sure you clarify those things. Right? You can talk to the Scrum Master, you can talk to your senior designers and eliminate it or reduce it. The third one is who uncertainty. Especially this is related to requirements. So sometimes when you collect requirements, maybe different people from the customer side gives you different ideas. There can be some conflicting ideas about a requirement. So then whose idea, whose word is the final? So that is called who uncertainty. Should I develop according to this guy's explanation or that guy's explanation? So if you have that kind of uncertainty, first of all, you need to understand, yes, we have a who uncertainty. So then maybe you need to have a common meeting with these guys and take that up and resolve it. Because it's not your problem, it's their problem. Or maybe you can raise that concern with your product owner because product owner is your main contact. Maybe product owner will contact these guys and give you the final word. So likewise, you need to eliminate these things, minimize these. What uncertainty, how uncertainty, and who uncertainty. So that is how you reduce uncertainty because we don't like uncertainty. Yes, we embrace variability, but we want to reduce uncertainty because uncertainty is part and parcel of variability. Right. So that is our first principle. What is that first principle? Variability and uncertainty. Right. So now we'll move on to our second principle. දෙයක යටතේ අපි කොච්චර කතා කරාද? iterative development, right? Time boxing, variability through inspection, adaptation, and transparency. The three type of uncertainties. Right. So our next concept is prediction. Sorry, uh, prediction and adaptation. Right. Prediction and adaptation. Second principle. So these are interrelated. Remember, why do we accept agile principles? Because the business environment is so dynamic. So in dynamic environments, when you work, you need to have very good prediction and adaptation skills. You need to predict things, keep predicting things, what's going to happen next, and adapt to the changes. So some people they predict, but they don't adapt. They try to live, do work the old way. That doesn't work. Okay. So therefore, always predict changes, predict the future, and especially if you see a change, quickly adapt. Quickly adapt to that change. You can't do it in the old way, especially in IT field. Remember, IT field is the driving force behind human civilization right now. IT field. For example, if you talk about Sri Lankan history, නේද? අපි කියන්නේ අනුරාධපුර යුගය, පොළොන්නරු යුගය නේද? අනුරාධපුර era, පොළොන්නරු era. So what was the driving force? Can anyone tell me? What was the driving force at that time? Or one or two driving forces? ඒ කාලේ අපිට කියන්න බෑනේ. තොරතුරු තාක්ෂණය කියලා. Anyone? Something like today IT. Can you suggest me one or two areas? So today we can say IT, maybe AI, right? Green technologies. So these are the driving forces today, right? What about the Sri Lankan history, Anuradhapura era, Polonnaru era?
Agriculture and industrialization.
Industrialization, I don't think, right? Do you think that Anuradhapura era, a lot of people,
Architecture.
yeah, architecture, agriculture, especially I need one more. That is irrigation, right? අපි අදත් කියන්නේ වැව් නේද? ඇලවල් ගැන කියනවා නේද? So then yes, construction, agriculture, irrigation. So likewise, so if you take
So what
something,
is the meaning of irrigation?
irrigation means things like these canals and so on, right? Lakes, okay? Right. But you know that 1500, 1600, the driving forces were different, but not in Sri Lanka, in European countries. That is more technology, factories, capitalism. So likewise, these things get changed. So we need to predict. We need to predict, right? In the society or in our field or all places. So then only we can adapt our plans because you can't plan everything, right? For example, you can't plan your life upfront. Maybe you had a plan about 2 years ago. Maybe now you want to change it. That is the reality. You can't just keep commit to your old plan because that plan is now outdated. So same thing in software development. So we always keep predicting the future and keep adapting according to the realities, changes, because that is how we can survive. So then there are some principles related to that. Remember, the planning is not bad. Planning is important, but don't do too much plan. Don't overcommit to plans. Do just enough planning. Do planning at different levels. Right? Don't make your plan hard and fast upfront. You keep refining your plan. So that is the idea. Right? That is the idea. So then we have some concept related to that. Right? Prediction and adaptation. These are the sub concepts. What are those? Keep options open. Accept that you can't get it right up front. Favor in adaptive exploratory approach. Embrace changes in economically sensible way. Balance predictive upfront work with adaptive just-in-time work. So in the exams also, they sometimes they will ask, write down or explain key concepts in prediction and adaptation. So then you need to explain these things, or maybe few of these things. We will do some past paper questions also. Okay. Actually, at the end, you have some past paper question in this slide. Right. So now let's try to understand. Now you know the importance of prediction and adaptation, some concept related to prediction and adaptations. So the first one is keep options open. So keep options open means do not overcommit. Do not commit things too early. So this is a modern concept, part of the modernization. Right? Keep options open. Okay. So if you are a little bit of interested in cricket, of course, not Sri Lankan cricket, the world cricket. So if you want to be a good batsman, right, batsman, so you have to have some kind of skills, right, some kind of skills. But of course, I am not a professional cricketer, right? Mama, ඇවිල්ලා නිකන් ඔය බත් එක්ක cricket ගහපු කෙනෙක්. But whatever I'm doing, I'm serious. මම බත් එක්ක cricket ගහුවත් ඔය ගමේ ටූර්නමන්ට් එකක cricket ගහුවත් මම යන්නේ දිනන්න. මම බැට් එක ගන්න ලකුණු ගහන්න, බෝලේ ගන්න විකට් ගන්න. Whatever I do, I am 100% committed. I want to win, not fail. විභාගයට යන්නේ පාස් වෙන්න. ඉන්ටර්විව් එකට යන්නේ ජොබ් එක ගන්න. So therefore, I'm interested in these things, right? Whatever I'm learning, I'm interested. I'm very serious about it. So can you tell me someone who is interested in cricket, some one or two features of a good batsman? Good batsman. On the batsman කෙනෙක් තියෙන ලක්ෂණ දෙක එකක් දෙකක් කියන්න බෑ. Because we can relate it to here. Of course, that batsman must have the strength and so on. That is general things, right? Other than that, of course, that batsman must have a good cricketing brain and so on. Like Mahela, Sangakkara, cricketing brain. But other than that, so if you look at good batsmen, yes, confidence is also required. So those are the overall things. But some technical things. So one technical thing is good batsmen, they take the shot selection or the decision late. So that is why we say they have more time. Good batsmen have more time to play their shots. Why? They take that decision late. අර පොල්ලඩි ගහනවා වගේ එහෙමත් සාර්ථක වෙන්න පුළුවන්. හරි. but දැන් ජයසූරිලා වගේ අයත් අපිට පේන්නේ නිකන් හයියෙන් අහනවා වගේ හැබැයි but they quickly change their decisions, their short selections, so they take decisions late. So then we say they have more time, they have more time because then they can take the best decision. But other batsmen, they prematurely decide the shot because they don't wait. Of course, that is one feature. Of course, you must have a good eye, right? You must have a very good sense about the field, right? Very good sense about the thinking of the bowler. All these things are there. But one thing is you take your decisions pretty late. So then it will be more realistic decision. Do not overcommit. Same thing, keep options open as much as possible. It doesn't mean that you don't take decisions, right? So for example, now this curve is very important. This is called cost of decision. Cost of deciding. This is called cost of differing, not deciding. When you take a decision, there's a cost. If you take that decision high, the cost of decision is high. Then there's a cost of not taking decisions. Not taking decisions. If you take that decision upfront, that cost of delaying is less because you have not delayed it. But if you delay more and more, So that means cost of delaying is high. දැන් බෝලෙට ගහන්න නැතුව මෙතන ඉඳලා අන්තිමට මොකද වෙන්නේ? ඔයා බෝලෙට ගැහුවෙම නැත්නම් ඩිසිෂන් එකක් මොනගත්තා? ඒක පේපර් බෝලේ වල විකට් එක වදිනවා. So that means cost of delaying is very high because it's too late. But if you overcommit the wrong shot, so that is cost of decision is high. So I'm just taking that cricket example. So then you must understand what is the optimum because it's add up this amount plus this amount. If it is too late, this amount is high, this amount is low. Here, this amount is high, this amount is low. So what is the optimum place? Maybe somewhere here. Again, you add 2, but x plus y is the smallest, or the x plus y is the minimum somewhere here. So you need to identify where is it. So that is the right time to take the decision. Right time to take the decision. But until that time, you need to wait. But don't wait more than that. Then cost of delaying is high. Sometimes you don't have enough time to act. So that is called keep options open. Right? Don't overcommit to things. Right? It's about your life decisions as well. Right? Thinking about your career. Right? Keep options open. දැන් සමහරවල් මේ IT ඩිග්‍රී එකක් කරන එකද හොඳ software engineering ඩිග්‍රී එකක් කරන එකද හොඳ කියලා. නැත්නම් අපි එකපාරට කරන්නද මේ data science ඩිග්‍රිය. එහෙම නැත්නම් එකපාර කරන්නද cyber security ඩිග්‍රිය. So I always tell them do IT or computer science degree. Why? If you do IT or computer science degree, you keep options open because you never know, right? ඔයා ඉස්කෝලෙන් අස්සෙච්ච ගමන් ඔයා හිතන විදියට නෙමෙයි ඔයා හිතන්නේ තව අවුරුදු දෙකක් යනකොට. right? ඉස්කෝලෙන් අස්සෙච්ච කාලේ environment එක නෙමෙයි දැන් තියෙන්නේ. industry එකේ. But ඔයා software engineering degree එකක් කරා කියමු දැන් ඉතින් ඔයාලා software engineering කරන්න බෑ මරණකම්. right? ඔයා cyber security කරා කිය cyber security කරන්න. දැන් මේවා ගොඩක් අට අපි ස්ටුඩන්ට්ලට හිතෙන්නේ නැහැ ඒවා. But we know the reality. So therefore, that is not the time to be specialized. Time to be specialized is when you are doing higher studies, maybe MSc, because you have the general degree. So that keep your options open. At the same time, you can adapt to the situations. Right? So same thing you can do it in agile development. Right? About you need to take the decisions, but don't overcommit it prematurely. Right? So that is why we do high level planning and refine the plans, and then final planning is done very late. Actually, that is why we have sprint planning, then daily planning. So the today's work is finalized, the plan is finalized only today morning. Today morning we finalize it, not 3 months ago. What to do today? Okay. Next sprint planning, next iterations planning is finalized only at the beginning of that sprint. We have a rough plan, but not finalized plan. So that means we keep options open. That is what is meant by adaptive planning. Right? So these are important for your life also. Right? Life also. So don't overcommit. එහෙම ඔයගොල්ලෝ දන්න එහෙම තමයි වෙස්ටර්න් countries වල මැරේජ් වෙන්නේ. right? යාළු වෙලා ඉන්නවා ලිවිං ටුගෙදර් කරන අන්තිමට නැතුවම බැරි වුණොත් බනිනවා. ඒ කියන්නේ දෙන්නට දෙන්න නැතුවම බැහැ කියලා තීරණය කරාම තමයි බනින්නේ. මැරේජ් එකට යන්නේ. Not the first thing is marriage. හරි කොහෙන් හරි ප්‍රොපෝසල් එකක් කරලා මැරේජ් එකට ගිහින් පටන් ගන්න නැහැ. So that is, of course, it's related to their culture and so on, but that is their modern civilization. Right? Keep options open. That is the same thing you should do it for your career, jobs. Right? Keep options open. Because otherwise it can be very costly. Very costly. Right. So the next concept related to prediction and adaptation. Okay. Accept that you can't get it right up front. So don't think that the in the very first attempt, you can do the perfect work. So if you try to do the perfect work upfront, that will be a lot of waste of your time, cost. So the idea is first come up with some solution. Of course, that should be the best you can think of, but always think maybe we can do improve it later, right? So rather than come up with the best solution, you come up with good solution and then improve it. So that is very important. So that is why we have a rough planning. But when we are getting closer and closer to the task, we can improve the plan so that it's more realistic. It's more realistic. So that is why we do prototyping. So first iteration of prototyping. So maybe we get feedback and we say this is our second night prototype. Now maybe we get more feedback. The more visibility, the more predictable, the more reliable. So therefore, don't try to get it right up front. Just accept that as a reality because we can do continuous improvements, right? Because you need to wait for more visibility to optimize things. So all these things are interrelated, right? Adaptive planning, variability, right? All these are interrelated. So again, go for adaptive exploratory approach, right? Your first solution may not be the best solution. Your first UI may not be the best UI. So keep looking for improving things. But don't try to get the perfect solution upfront because best solutions comes exploratory way. Okay? So that is very important. So that is why we go for iterative, right? Exploratory development. So remember there's a cost of change. That cost of change is very high in traditional development. When it's getting more and more time, the cost is high. But in Scrum-based development, the cost of change is relatively low because we have planned for that. We have our process has facilitate that. So our agile values embrace it. Right? So embrace changes in economically sensible way. So economically sensible means at the end this is a business, right? Software development is a business. The software is used to run their businesses, your customer. So therefore, embrace changes, right? Embrace can වැළඳ ගන්න. But economically sensible way. If it is too costly, don't do it, right? You can negotiate. But if it is really going to add value to the customer, yes, accept it. So balance predictive upfront work with adaptive just-in-time work. So that means evolutionary or adaptive planning. Upfront high-level things, but detailed things, you do it just in time, just before you start that. Okay. Because otherwise, your plan is detailed, but plan is not realistic. So the most important thing is the plan must be realistic. It must address the reality. Right. So the next concept. Right. So how many concepts now we discuss? Variability and uncertainty, prediction and adaptation. Third one is validated learning. So validated learning means you keep learning things. That is why we go for iterative things. Right? At the end of first iteration, you learn things. Learn things can be course එකක් follow කරලා නෙමෙයි. By doing work. Because every project is new. Maybe this is a new customer. You learn more about the domain. You learn more about the customer. You learn more about the technology. Maybe this is a new technology are using. අපි ගොඩක් අර ඊළඟ ප්‍රොජෙක්ට් එකේ පාවිච්චි කරන්නේ අලුත් ටෙක්නොලොජි එක. නැත්නම් අලුත් features තියෙන releases, software releases. So therefore, at the end of every iteration, you get a opportunity to learn so that you can use that learning in the next iteration. So that is good, right? But you need to validate it. So there must be a proper process to validate your learning, right? Discuss it, identify it, improve it. Because otherwise it doesn't automatically happen. Okay? So these are few points related to validated learning. Validate important assumptions first. Leverage multiple concurrent learning loops. Organize workflows for fast feedback. So feedback is important for learning. Okay. So one point is validate important assumptions fast. Because sometimes we assume things. Sometimes we assume things. And maybe those assumptions are not correct. Right? Those assumptions are not correct. So then you are in trouble. So therefore, whenever yes, you can assume things. There's no issue with that. But make sure you validate your assumptions. ඒ assumptions හරිද කියලා double check කරන්න. Assumption නැතුව වැඩ කරන්න බෑ. But double check the assumption. නේද? දැන් සමහරවිට අපි මම මේ ක්‍රිකට් වලින් උදාහරණ ගත්තේ කලින් ක්‍රිකට් වලින් කරපුවාම උදාහරණයක් ගත්තාම. අපි තීරණය කරනවා හරි අපි සෙනසුරාදාට ගිහිල්ලා කොහේ ග්‍රවුන්ඩ් එකේ ක්‍රිකට් ගහමු. හරි. ඉස්සර නම් තිබුණේ පාර්ලිමේන්තු ග්‍රවුන්ඩ්. දැන් නම් ඒකට ක්‍රිකට් ගහන්න දෙන්නේ නැහැ නේ. එහෙම නැත්නම් වෙන කොහේ ග්‍රවුන්ඩ් එකේ ගිහලා ක්‍රිකට් ගහනවා. හරි හරි යන් කීයක දෙන්නේ 8ට එන්නේ. 8ට එමු. අන්තිමට ඔන්න දැන් කට්ටිය ඇවිල්ලා ග්‍රවුන්ඩ් එකට. සමහරවිට ග්‍රවුන්ඩ් එකට ආවට පස්සේ එකෙක්වත් විකට් පොළු අරන් ඇවිල්ලා නැහැ. ඒතර කවුරු ඇසියුම් කළා හරි අරයා විකට් පොළු අරන් එයි කියලා. සමහරවිට එයාට පණිවිඩය ගිහිල්ලා නැහැ. නැත්නම් එයා ඇසියුම් කළ වෙන කවුරු හරි අරන් එයි කියලා. So then you need හරි ක්‍රිකට් ගහමු කියලා කියනකොට හිතනවා කවුද බැට් එක ගේන්නේ? කවුද බැට් ගේන්නේ? කවුද බෝල ගේන්නේ? එතන වෙන කට්ටිය ඇවිල්ලා පිච් එක අල්ල ගන්න පුළුවන්ද? කවුද එතන ඒක මේක් ෂුවර් කවුද උදෙන්ම යන්නේ එහෙනම්? So validate your assumptions. Validate your assumptions. මේ දවස්වල ග්‍රවුන්ඩ් එක පාවිච්චි කරන්න පුළුවන්ද? අපි කලින් නම් අවුරුද්දකට කලින් ශ්‍රී ලංකාවට පළියට මේ දවස්වල ශ්‍රී ලංකාවට බැරිද නැහැ? So that is called validate your assumptions. So first try to reduce the number of assumptions and at the same time make sure you validate each and every assumption. Because otherwise it can be very costly. Just a verification from your product owner is good enough, right? Maybe from the Scrum Master. So that will, otherwise it will cost a lot. Right. Second sub point is leverage multiple concurrent learning loops. So learn from multiple ways. You can learn things in your sprint retrospective. You can learn things in your sprint review. Even you can learn in your daily Scrum meetings. You can learn from pair programming. You learn from me learn from you because we two are doing pair programming. Right? You can learn from QA engineers. Developers can learn from QA engineers, get some validations. If you're not very sure about the requirement, maybe you can ask because that guy has written the test case. Right? So multiple concurrent learning loops, not just one place, right? Talk to your product owner, talk to your Scrum Master, talk with each other in the team. So you can learn from these meetings. Even when you work with a code, you can learn from others' code. Right? Maybe they have written a good logic. You can learn. Right. Right. So then remember we talk about validated learning. So another subconcept is organized workflows for fast feedback because feedback is important for learning. So that is why we go for short iteration, time box short iterations. So that gives you opportunity to learn fast, get feedback in every 3 weeks. Right? Not only it's good for the customer because customer get early competitive advantage. It's good for us also, fast feedback. Okay. So those are important. Right. So our next concept, next agile concept, work in progress. This is super important concept. WIP. So what is mean by work in progress? Work in progress means work that you have started, not yet finished. අපි ඒවට කියනවා WIP items කියලා. For example, your BIT degree is a WIP for you because you have started but not yet finished. Your semester 4 is WIP. For some people, still the semester 2 is WIP. ඇයි ඒ? සමහරවිට ඒගොල්ලෝ තව මේ repeat subjects තියෙනවා. හැබැයි සමහරුන්ගේ WIP එකක් නෙමෙයි semester 2 ඉවරයි. level 1 ඉවරයි. But for some students මෙතන ඉන්න සමහරුන්ට තාම level 1 කියන්නේ WIP එක. සමහර ඉන්න final year level 3 තාම level 1 WIP. So level 1 is WIP, level 2 is WIP, level 3 is WIP. But some students, when they are in level 3, only level 3 is in WIP. Okay, so work in progress means something you have started but not yet finished. Okay, so having one large number of WIP is a bad thing. That is a very bad thing. That is why agile principle says reduce WIPs. Right? Reduce WIPs. The main reason is this is a psychological fact. Humans are not very good at multitasking. Right? So humans are not very good at multitasking. Computers, really good at. Computers, of course, we design computers. Computers, really good at. But not humans. So therefore, don't think that we are like computers. We are terribly bad at multitasking. Our productivity is really low. So therefore, idea is as an individual, as a team, when you are doing agile development, reduce the WIPs. Right? So that means that is why in sprint development, every sprint we take only 3 to 4, right? Maybe 3 to 4 or maximum 5 user stories. So we just concentrate on implementing these few user stories in next 3 to 4 weeks. So say we took 4 and we finished 3. That is fine, right? That means 3 out of 4 is now finish. Finish means finish. Finish කියන්නේ බාගෙට ඉවරයි, ලාවට ඉවරයි නෙමෙයි. ඉවරයි කියන්නේ ඉවරෙටම ඉවරයි. So that is why we say when you take a user story, you design, end-to-end develop, test, release. Product release කරන්න ඕන. So that means it's done. අපි ඔකට agile වලට පාවිච්චි කරන වචන තමයි done කියලා ඔකට කියන්නේ. done කියන්නේ doneම done. ආයේ ඕක බලන්න දෙයක් නැහැ. It doesn't mean that it is perfect. Maybe we can do some improvements later, but done. It's just an improvement. නේද? දැන් ගොඩක් අය done කියන එකේ තේරුම මොකද්ද? භාගයට ඉවර කරලා කියනවා done කියලා. එහෙම වෙන්න බෑ. So that is why we say our deliverable of each sprint must be potentially shippable product increment. අපි පාවිච්චි කරන වචනේ මොකද්ද? Potentially shippable product increment. ඔයාට ප්‍රොඩක්ෂන් එකට දෙන්න පුළුවන් මට්ටමේ රිලීස් එකක් තමයි ඔයා දෙන්න ඕනේ හැම ස්ප්‍රින්ට් එකේ. ප්‍රොඩක්ෂන් යවන්න පුළුවන්. ප්‍රොඩක්ෂන් යවනවද නැද්ද කියන පස්සේ තීරණය කරයි. කස්ටමර් කියන්නේ අපි මේක ප්‍රොඩක්ෂන් යවන්න ඕනේ අපි ඊළඟ එකත් එකතු කරලා දෙකම එකට දාමු කියලා. හැබැයි ඔයා දෙන්න ඕනේ ප්‍රොඩක්ෂන් යවන්න පුළුවන් රෙඩි එක. So why? Otherwise, these things drag into the next. කලින් එකේ 4යි ඊළඟ එකේ 4යි. ඒතර කලින් එකේ 4ෙන් 3ම ඉවර නැහැ. ඒතකොට ඊළඟ එකේ 7ක් තියෙනවා. So that add to pressure. ඔයාලට pressure එක වැඩි දැන්. team එකට pressure එක වැඩි. Because now you need to then ඔයාලට for examples assume that you have no repeat subjects in level 1. So that means now you just concentrate on semester 4, right? Just 5 subjects. Now assume that you are having 2 repeats in semester 2. Now that means this time you are going to have 7 subjects because your WIP is 7. So which one is better? So better thing is you just concentrate that you should have done in level 1 actually. You fully concentrate on semester 1, finish it. Fully concentrate on semester 2, finish it. So then all subjects are done. No WIPs you are taking to the level 2. So then your level 2 is also very peaceful. Peaceful. Otherwise, it become more and more chaotic. It's firefighting. Right? Firefighting. So that is why we said reduce WIPs as much as possible. Okay. So this is the strategy. Keep smaller number of WIP items. That is why we have short iterations, and each short iteration we only concentrate on sometimes just two user stories. So keep only small number of WIPs and make sure your WIP do not stay in WIP for long. So ideally WIP must be in one single iteration. It must not be in the second iteration, next iteration. But if the same item is in the first iteration, second iteration, still third iteration, still it is a WIP, that is a bad sign. That is a bad sign. Okay. So keep small number of WIPs, make sure that WIP remains as a WIP only for short period. So that is the strategy in agile development. Okay. Right. So actually we use that concept in our class as well. So remember you have 5 subjects, but we don't do 5 subjects in single day. Why? We are very bad at multitasking. So therefore you concentrate on 5 subjects in a single day is too much. Too much. So that is why we take only 2 or 3 subjects per week. That is the manageable according to our understanding. It doesn't mean that we don't do everything. We don't do all 5 subjects. Yes, we do. That is why we have a sort of a rollover roster. So the next week we will concentrate maybe networking and enterprise application development. And sometimes we want to finish some subject quickly. So that is our another plan, right? So in another 2-3 weeks, we want to finish Agile. So then our class concentrate on maybe 4 subjects. So you can prepare for the Agile past papers and so on in the background. So likewise, we want to finish and get the WIPs out of our task list. Okay. And WIP should not remain there for long period. Okay. So you can apply it for everything. උදේට නැගිට්ටමත් ඔය වැඩේ වෙනවා සමහරට. උදේට නැගිට්ටම සමහරට කරන්න වැඩ ගොඩයි. අන්තිමට හවසට එකක්වත් කරලා නැහැ. ඇයි ඒ ප්‍රෙෂර් එක. But if you have well defined few tasks that is doable, or at least in the morning you decide that. Okay, මම මේ පහක් කරන්නේ නැහැ අද. අද කරන්නේ මේ තුන විතරයි. පහක් කරනවා කියලා පටන් ගත්තම අන්තිමට එකක්වත් කරලා නැහැ. සමහරට ඔයා කියනවා නෑ මම පහක් කරන්නේ නැහැ අද. අද කරන්නේ මේ වැඩ තුන. හැබැයි මේ වැඩ තුනම ඉවර කරනවා. That should be the approach. Otherwise, nothing will happen. And you are under stress. Okay, so that is called managing your WIPs. Okay. So when you have less number of WIPs, that means your progress is measurable. You start, finish, start, finish, start, finish, start, finish. And your project wise, now you have finished 10%, 20%, 30%, done. So when you do your final year project also, right? Some students, right? Now actually now you are in the second half of the year. So the final year students, some students they have not shown me any progress. Of course, I'm just working with one or two students only for the supervising. මාත් එක්ක ගොඩක් අය supervising වලට එන්නෙත් නෑ ස්ටුඩන්ට්ලා. මොකද මම කරනවා නම් ඒක හරියට කරන්න ඕනේ නැත්නම් නිකන් ඉන්නවා නේ. ඒතර එතන ගිහිල්ලා සමහරව තාම මුකුත් කරලා නැහැ. ඇයි ඒ? ඇහුවම කියන්නේ රික්වයර්මන්ට් ડોකියුමන්ට් එක හදලා ඉවරයි, ඩිසයින් ડોකියුමන්ට් එක හදලා ඉවරයි. එහෙම නෙමෙයි software develop කරන්නේ. progress එක වයින්නේ මොකෙන්ද? කොච්චර ඔයා දැන් deliver කළාද? ඔයා කියනවනේ දැන් මගේ මේ ෆන්ක්ෂන් එක ඉවරයි. නේ. අඩුම ගානේ login screen එක ඉවරයි. ස්ටුඩන්ට් කස්ටමර් accounts හදන එක වැඩේ ඉවරයි. shopping cart වගේ ගන්න දැන් products add කරන්න පුළුවන් ඔන්න screen එක. පුළුවන් නෙමෙයි පෙන්වන්න ඕන ඊට පස්සේ demonstration එකක් online හරි කොහොම හරි. මෙන්න වැඩ කරනවා. potentially shippable product increment. Not the full thing. තාම යාට customer ට making product add කරන්න බැරි වෙයි. හැබැයි දැන් product admin අලුතින් add කරන්න පුළුවන් වෙනවා. administrator. customer කෙනෙක් register වෙන්න අන්න එතකොට අපි කියනවා දැන් ඔයාගේ WIP ඉවර වෙනවා. ඔයාගේ progress එක තියෙනවා. දැන් අපිට කියන්න පුළුවන් හරි ඔයාගේ user stories 20න් 6ක් දැන් ඉවරයි. හරි දැන් 40% විතර ඉවරයි වැඩි. හැබැයි තාම design document එක තාම use case අඳිනවා ඒක තමයි ගොඩක් අය කියන්නේ. හරි. software developers නෙමෙයි ඉන්නේ ආටිස්ලා. අඳින කට්ටිය. හරි. use case අඳිනවා. මම කියන්නේ අඳින්න එපා කියන එක නෙමෙයි. හරි. ඒ වැඳ ඉන්නවා. ඒතකොට අපි දන්නවා මේ කරන්නේ බොරුව. කරන්නේ බොරුව. So agile development is a practical approach. බොරු කරලා අපිට private sector එකේ පඩි ගවන්න බෑනේ. පඩි ගවන්න වෙපාර ඕගලන්ට වෙන්නේ. ඒගොල්ලන්ට වෙන්නේ මොකද? software development ගැන කවි කිය ආඩපාලි කිය ඉන්න. ඊට පස්සේ අනිත් උන්ට බයිනවා ඊට පස්සේ මේක මහා කාලකන්ණි ෆීල්ඩ් එකක්. මොකද Tamanට වෑන් බුක් කරගන්න. software development හරි whatever AI හරි. ඊට පස්සේ බයින ෆේස් එකට යනවා. හරි. අඬන ෆේස් එකට යනවා. ඊට පස්සේ මම හිතන්නේ ඊට පස්සේ කුඹරක් එහෙම කරගෙන ඉන්න ඇති. ත්‍රිවිල්ලක් එලෝගෙන. So you need to think, right? You must be a modern person, realistic person, intelligent person, practical person. Right? You must know your business, management, technology, design, architecture, engineering mindset. Right? If you want to be a professional in this area, this subject. This is මේක වල රජේ රස්සාවක් නෙමෙයි නිකන් පත්වීන් ලිපියක් හම්බ වෙනවා ඊට පස්සේ ආට පඩිය හම්බ වෙනවා. හරි. Software field is IT field is different. Okay, right. So therefore make sure you have small number of WIPs and WIP doesn't remain WIP for long. And there are some more concepts related to this in Agile, that is focus on idle work, not idle workers. And consider the cost of delays. What is that? First of all, economically sensible batch size. එකපාරට ඔයා පටන් ගන්න ඕන ඔයාට දරා ගන්න පුළුවන් විශේෂයෙන්ම ආර්ථික වශයෙන් දරා ගන්න පුළුවන් ටාස්ක් ප්‍රමාණය නැත්නම් user story ප්‍රමාණය. එක iteration එකකට. Maybe that is 2, that is 3, that is 4. That is fine. No point adding too many items and not finishing any of those. Rather, you add 2 items and finish those. That is better. That is better. So that is why you get now in Windows, right? We get software updates at least once a month. So every update, sometimes just a small bug fix or just a small tiny feature. That's fine. That is how the software is developed. But about 10 years ago, still I can remember after Windows XP, we had to wait about more than 7 years to get Windows 10 or whatever, right? 10 or 8 or whatever. අවුරුදු 5කින් විතර තමයි අපිට අලුත් එකක් එන්නේ. දැන් එහෙම නැහැ. සතියකට මොනවා හරි ඇඩිෂනල් ෆීචර්ස් එනවා. එක්ක මොනවා හරි UI පැත්තේ වෙනසක් වෙලා, settings වල වෙනසක් වෙලා, improvement එකක් වෙලා. So small releases. So then there's a progress. Software එක හැමදාම update වෙනවා. So economically sensible batch sizes. So that you can time box it, short time box. Reduce overhead, accelerated feedback, reduce risk. ගොඩාක් දේවල් එක රිලීස් වෙනවට වැඩිය පොඩි පොඩි දේවල් එක රිලීස් වෙන එක හොඳයි. And the more team members are also motivated because it's not too stressful also. මොකද අපි ගන්න එක පොඩි වැඩක් දෙකක් නිකන් කරන්න පුළුවන් ප්‍රමාණයට පොඩි වැඩක් දෙකක් අරගෙන ඒක ඉවර කරනවා. නැත්තම් අවුරුද්දකට ටාස්ක් 50ක් විතර අරගෙන හරි ටාස්ක් 50ක් ගන්න අවුරුද්දකට පස්සේ රිලීස් කරන්න කියලා. අන්තිමට it's too much. So just one or two tasks that we are going to do in next 3 weeks. That is more brain friendly, less stress. Okay. So then you can do just in time inventory management. This is more for manufacturing actually. So just in time inventory management is something developed by Toyota. Right? Toyota. So that means you take the product to a particular area, production area on or product or raw material or any other thing only when it is really required. So then everything is synchronized, highly productive, right? Highly productive. So that is another reason why we take only few tasks in agile development. So you just concentrate on those things. So හිතන්නෙත් ඒ user story එක නේ වෙලා විතරයි. ඊට පස්සේ ඒක අමතක කරන්න පුළුවන් මට. ඉතින් රිලීස් කරලා ඉවරයි. So just in time. නැත්තම් 10ක් 15ක් 20ක් ගෙන ඔළුවේ තියන් ඉන්න ඕනේ හැමතිස්සෙම. Right. So this is another interesting concept, sub-concept. Focus on idle work, not idle workers. So this is very important. So what is bad? Idle work, not idle workers. So idle work means that work is not progressing. So, or maybe it's blocked. It can't progress. So that's a bad thing. If a task or work cannot progress due to some blocking, that is a bad thing. So then you need to fix it. You need to fix it. Because at the end, we want to make sure that the works are done. Right? All your user stories are implemented as much as possible. So if something is not getting progress, that is a bad sign. But some managers, their attitude was different. They think if the workers are idle, කවුරු හරි වැඩක් නොකර ඉන්නවා නම් ඒගොල්ලෝ හිතනවා වැඩේ આવුත්. මෙන්න මුනි අයිස් ගහනවා. හරි. ඒතර ඒගොල්ලෝගේ ફોකස් එක යන්න ඕනේ මේ වැඩ නොකර ඉන්න අයට. මම කියන්නේ වැඩ නොකර ඉන්න කියන එක නෙමෙයි කාටවත්. ඒගොල්ලෝගේ ફોකස් එක යන්නේ මොකටද? වැඩේ වෙන්නේ නැද්ද? සමහරවිට ඔයාලට පේනවා මේගොල්ලෝ අයිඩල් ඉන්නවා කයිය ගහනවා. හැබැයි වැඩේ වෙනවනේ. වැඩේ වෙනවනේ. ඉතින් වැඩේ වෙනව නම් මොකටද ඔයාලට තියෙන කිචිය? මේගොල්ලෝ පොඩ්ඩක් hina වුණාට රිලැක්ස් එකේ හිටියට ටීම් මෙම්බර්ස්. සමහරව කැමති නැහැ ටීම් එකේ මෙම්බර්ස්ලා සතුටු වෙනවට. හරි ටීම් එකේ මෙම්බර්ස්ලා පොඩ්ඩක් hina වෙනවට සතුටු වෙනවට කැමති නැහැ. ඒගොල්ලෝ some project managers. So they think මුන් අයිස් ගහනවා මුන් නිකන් ඉන්නවා. So your task is not looking at your workers. Look at the progress. සමහරවිට මේගොල්ලෝ hina වෙන්නේ වැඩ ඉවර කරලා වෙන්න පුළුවන්. හරි. මොකද වැඩ ඉවර කරන්නේ නැතුව hina වෙන්න බෑනේ සාමාන්‍ය නේද ස්ට්‍රෙස් නේ. මුන් දැන් ආතල් එකේ ඉන්නේ ඇයි? වැඩේ ඉවරයි. වැඩේ ඉවර නැහැ. ඉතින් ඔයාට ඔයත් ආතල් එකේ ඉන්න එපා. අනිත් මිනිස්සුන්ට ඊර්ෂ්‍යා කරන්නේ නැද්ද? Right. That is why we take the best people, highly motivated people. They are they can be very productive. Right. So maybe 10 people which they are not very capable, maybe they can't do it for 1 week. But very capable people, maybe 2 people, they can do it in 2 days. So which one is better? So අර දෙන්න මේක දවස් දෙකකින් කරලා අනිත් දවස් තුන නිකන් හිටියත් ලාභයි නේද? මොකද අනිත් 10 දෙනා දවස් 5 තිස්සේ කරගන්න බැරි වැඩේනේ මුන් දෙන්න මේ දවස් දෙකකින් කරන්නේ. ඒතකොට එක පැත්තකින් අපිට මේ දෙන්නට වැඩියෙන් පඩි ගවන්න පුළුවන්. අනිත් අතට මේ දෙන්න දවස් තුනක් නිකන් හිටියත් අපිට ආයතනයක් විදිහට අපිට වාසි මේක. මොකද අරුන් 10 දෙනා එකතු වෙලා මේක නානවා. හරි 10 දෙනා ඉවරලා හානවා. රෑ 12ටත් වැඩ. මොනවාද වැඩ? වැඩ තමයි හානවා. So that is your concern. That is your concern. So keep eye on the progress of the work, not idle workers. Of course, idle workers ලා ඉන්නවනම් ඕනට වැඩි අපිට ඒගොල්ලන්ට තව වැඩක් දෙන්න පුළුවන්. ඒක වෙනම කතන්දරයක්. But that is not your main focus. Your focus must be work, not people. Okay. These are very important. මේවා තමයි ගොඩක් ප්‍රශ්න ඇති වෙන්නේ. ඔය සමහර බොරු බිසි කියලා පෙන්නනවා කියලා ඔයාලා අහලා තියෙනවද? ආයතන වල ඉන්න සමහර බොරු බිසි. බැලුවොත් නැත්තම් බිසි. ඇයි ඒ? බොස්ව ඉම්ප්‍රෙස් කරන්න. මොකද මේ බොස්ලා ඇවිල්ලා පරණ බොස්ලා. ඒගොල්ලෝ හිතන්නේ බිසි කට්ටිය තමයි පට්ට කියලා. එතකොට බොරුවට නිකන් බිසි හැමතිස්සෙම මොකක් හරි ස්ක්‍රීන් එක දිහා බලන් ඉන්නවා. කෝල්ස් වල කස්ටමර්ත් එක්ක කතා කරනවා වගේ. හැබැයි මුන් කරන වැඩක් නැහැ සමහරවිට. සමහරට අර බිසි නැති මිනිස්සයා ලස්සනට ඕගනයිස් කරලා හරි එයා ටූල්ස් පාවිච්චි කරලා වෙන දේවල් පාවිච්චි කරලා සමහරවිට මෙයා කස්ටමර්ත් එක්ක කෝල් 10ක් අරගෙන කරන බිස්නස් එක අරු එක කෝල් එකකින් ඉවර කරලා. මොකද්ද කවුද හොඳ? මෙයා මෙයා දවස් එකමාරක් තිස්සේ ලියන කෝඩ් එක වරද්ද අනිත් software developer සමහරට පැය භාගින් ලියලා. එයාට මීටර් කම්ප්ලෙක්සිටි එකට ටක් ගාලා හැන්ඩල් වෙනවා. එයා ටක් ගාලා බග් එක හොයාගන්නවා. කවුද වැරදි එතකොට? it's බග් එක ෆික්ස් වුණාද නැද්ද කියන එක තමයි බලන්න ඕනේ. නැතුව මේක වැඩද බිසිද කියන එක නෙමෙයි. හරි. දැන් ෆන්ක්ෂනැලිටි එක යූසර් ස්ටෝරි එක ඉම්ප්ලිමන්ට් කරලා ඉවරද නැද්ද කියන එකයි බලන්න ඕන. මේක බිසි වුණාට තමයි මේක කරපු මගුලකුත් නෑ අන්තිමට. Right. Focus on idle work, not idle workers. Right. Then consider the cost of delay. Remember, yes, we don't want to overcome it, but at the same time, we don't want to over delay. Over delay. So that is why we need to take decisions at the correct point. Correct point. That is common sense, right? Right. Our next concept, progress. So I told you it's very important to have a realistic idea about the progress. The team members, Scrum Master, customer, everyone must have a realistic idea about the progress of the project. Right? So how do you make sure that progress is happening? So that is the first thing, right? Make sure progress is happening. Sometimes there's no progress. Then there's an issue. Second thing is how to measure the progress. කොහොමද measure කරන්න progress එක? Okay. So these are few concepts related to concept called progress. What are those? Adapt to real-time information and replan. Measure progress by validating working assets. Focus on value-centric delivery. Right. So let's take the first one. Adapt to real-time information and replan. So you want to make sure that progress is happening, right? But if you feel like progress is not happening, that is why we have Kanban boards, okay? Or sprint task boards. Say your tasks are here. Initially say all three user stories are here to do. Then maybe this has come to this. That is WIP, work in progress. Maybe development. Maybe now it has come to the testing or tested, completed. Maybe this has come to here. Maybe still it is here. Or maybe this has come to this point, but it's wait there for very long. So as a Scrum Master, now you want to check why is it that. Hey, make a method. Maybe now for 3 days. For the last entire week, it is work. development. So then you need to get some feedback from the developer. ඇයි මේක ගියේ නැත්තේ? ඒක තමයි මේක හැමෝටම පේන්න දාලා තියෙන්නේ. මේ බෝඩ් එක හැමෝටම පේනවා ටීම් members. ඒකට අනිත් අයට තේරෙනවා මේ මෙතන මේ මොකක් හරි හිර වෙලා. මෙතන හිර වෙලා. මේ ටාස්ක් එක. ඒකට අපිට ගන්න බෑ ඇයි? Maybe you can't proceed it because there's a prerequisite. So that is why you have the daily sprint meetings, right? Daily scrum meetings. You can raise these issues. Or maybe that developer has struck. Maybe he is a new developer. Maybe he needs some help from a senior developer so that he can proceed. So likewise, you need to adapt to the real-time information and replan. සමහරට මේ ටාස්ක් එකට තව එක්කෙනෙක් allocate කරනවා. නැත්නම් මේ ටාස්ක් එක මෙයාගේ වෙන කෙනෙක්ට assign කරනවා. Because remember, Scrum Master is not boss. Scrum Master is not to blame others. Scrum Master is facilitator. Scrum Master is servant leader. Servant leader. Okay. Still, I can remember when I first joined my software development company. Right? First job. Again, my first job. Easy experience. So I had wonderful project manager. Best project manager I have worked with. Right? Best project manager I have worked with. Technical project manager. Right? Very high IQ. හරි ඒ දවස්වල ඔයගොල්ලෝ දන්නා අපි යුනිවර්සිටි යන ඒ කියන්නේ අපි A level කරන කාලේ ලංකාවෙන් හොඳම මාක්ස් ගන්න 4 දිනක් නැත්නම් 5 දිනක් හැම ෆීල්ඩ් එකෙම යවනවා ඕස්ට්‍රේලියා. මට මතක විදිහට මට මතක නැහැ යුනිවර්සිටි එකේ නම. හරි. යවලා ඒගොල්ලෝ කැමති දෙයක් ඉගෙන ගන්න කියන. ගොඩක් අය එතකොට ඒගොල්ලෝ කරන්නේ IT හරි මොනවා හරි තමයි කරන්නේ. නම් කොමර්ස් කරන අයට බිස්නස් එහෙම. ඒතකොට එහෙම ලංකාවේ টপ උඩම 4 දෙනා අතරට මැත්ස් වලින් රිසර්ච් අරගත්ත කෙනෙක් තමයි මගේ ප්‍රොජෙක්ට් මැනේජර්. ඒත් එයා මගේ අවුරුද්දෙම තමයි A level කරලා තියෙන්නේ. හිතා ගන්න පුළුවන්. මගේ ප්‍රොජෙක්ට් මැනේජර් මගේ වයස. මගේ ප්‍රොජෙක්ට් මැනේජර් මගේ වයස මාත් එක්කම A level කරේ. කරලා තියෙන්නේ. හැබැයි අපි ඒ දවස්වල යුනිවර්සිටි යනකොට අවුරුදු දෙකක් බලන් ඉන්න ඕන ගෙදර. 88 89 ත්‍රස්තවාදී කලබල JVP කලබල වලට කැම්පස් වහලා ඊට පස්සේ අපිට අවුරුද්දක් කැම්පස් එක වහලා දුන්නා ෆයිනලි ඉවර කරගන්න බැරුව. හරි අවුරුද්දක් කැම්පස් එක වහලා ඒතකොට අවුරුදු 3-4ක් අපි ඩිලේ. ඒතකොට අරය ඕස්ට්‍රේලියා ගිහිල්ලා අපිට වැඩි අවුරුදු 3කට විතර කලින් ඇවිල්ලා ජොබ් එක පටන් අරගෙන එයා දැන් ප්‍රොජෙක්ට් මැනේජර්. ඒ දවස්වල IT ෆීල්ඩ් එකේ බොහොම පොඩි පිරිස IT එතකොට ටක් ගාලා උඩට යනවා. හරි ටෙක්නිකල් පර්සන්. ඒතකොට පට්ට මීටරයක් ඒතකොට ඇති. ඒ ලෙවල් වල টপ 4 ඊට වගේ. ඒතකොට මම අලුත්නේ. මට හොඳට මතකයි සමහරට අපේ භාග්‍යයක් එහෙම ඉර වෙලා ආනා. ගිහිල්ලා කිව්වම ඕක මට දාන්න කියන. මම ෆික්ස් කරන්නම් කියන. එච්චරයි. So then I can concentrate on some other bugs. So some other time. මොකද මුලින්ම දෙන්නේ bug fixing. එකපාර software develop කරන්න දෙන්නේ නැහැ. So that is what we need, right? So that is what is called servant leader. Servant lead. මම කරන්නම් ඔයාලට අමාරු වැඩි. So that is why we need the experts because that person has about 3 years of experience. Though it's my same age. Because I went for a Sri Lankan university, she went for a foreign university, got a scholarship. So that is what we need. Adapt to the real-time information and replan, reschedule. Right? So next one is measure progress by validating work assets. මම කලින් කිව්වා වගේ validating work assets කියන්නේ මොකද්ද? software. We don't measure progress by documents. Not by your requirement specification, not by your design document, not by your class diagram, not by your use case diagram, but by how many use cases are now implemented, release, done. So that is how you measure progress. That is why we go for short iteration because that is the realistic approach. Okay. And focus on value centric delivery. Make you a තරගම තමයි. Value customer value තියෙන delivery කරන්න ඕන. Customer value තියෙන්නේ මොනයිද? Software එකේ. කස්ටමර්ට වැලියු නැහැ පත්තර කෑලි වල. ඒව අපිට වැලියු තියෙනවා. Right? Task diagram, ER diagram, use case diagram, that is value for us, not for the customer. So how do you, it doesn't mean that we don't do those things. Yes, we do those things, but we measure the progress not by those. We measure the progress by how many use cases, how many user stories are now done, fully developed, tested, release to the production. That is how you measure the progress. Value centric delivery. Right. So that is progress. Okay. Value centric delivery. That means this delivery that has add value to the customer. So this agile development is to give more and more value centric delivery to the customer early. You can see this is traditional. No early value for customer. This is traditional waterfall. No early value for customer. No early competitive advantage. But Scrum based development, early value for the customer because we give releases, real product releases, right? Real product releases, not documentation, blah, blah, blah. Remember waterfall at the end of analysis, requirement analysis, document. At the end of design, the mass higher capacity the software design document. So that is not value for the customer. You can make low, but here some features are implemented, release. So that is how we focus on value centric delivery. Okay. Right, next one, performance. Make a related that. How do you make sure that you have a good performance and how to measure it? Right. So how do you make sure that you have good performance as individuals, as a team? Performance means you do things, make things happen. You could gradually finish things. How do you make sure that gradually your project is progressing? Gradually more and more user stories are delivered. Now you can say our project is 50% over, 70% over. How do you say that? How do you make sure that? So few concepts. One is go fast but never hurry. This is a marathon, not 100 meter. Right? If it is 100 meter, yes, you go for the kill and then within 10 seconds you are done. But software development is for next 1 year, 2 year. So you can't go too fast because then we say the team members get burnout or team members will get the stress or they will leave your organization. It doesn't mean that software development is not stressful in agile, yes, but never hurry, never hurry. So it's a long term thing, right? That is called sustainable pace. දරා ගන්න පුළුවන් මට්ටමින් වැඩේ කරන්න. Sustainable pace. ඔයගොල්ලෝ දන්නවද ලංකාවේ ගොඩක් අයට වෙන ප්‍රශ්නයක් තමයි A level කරලා ඉවරනකොට ඒගොල්ලෝ exhausted. right? ඒ හොඳම ජීවිතේ හොඳම කාලය මොකද්ද? 19 30. විශේෂයෙන්ම 19 30. හැබැයි සමහරු A level කරලා ඉවරනකොට exhausted. මිනිහා A level කරලා ඉවරලා කල්පනා කරන්නේ කොහොමද නිකන් ඉන්නේ කොහොමද? ඇයි ඒ? මිනිහා බාගට මැරලා. පැයලිරකම් කටපාඩම් කරනවා. අර ටියුෂන් මේ ටියුෂන්. ඉතින් හොඳම කාලේ දැන් ඉවරයි. මිනිහා බාගට මැරලා මිනිහා දැන් මල කඳක්. So sustainable pace. A level කියන්නේ මරාගෙන මැන්න දෙයක් වෙන්න බෑ. ඔයාක ඩිග්‍රියක් කරනවා කියන්නේ exhaust වෙන්න බෑ. So it's just part of your life cycle. Right? So you just go like, but make sure you have progress. You achieve your objectives, targets in a sustainable pace. Same for the software development, agile development, right? Don't overwork, right? Build in quality. So that is called total quality management. Quality is not something we expect about the product. Right? So you can't just expect that the product is quality. If you want the product quality or the quality product, what is the starting point? Starting point is first take the quality team members. Quality team members. ඒක තමයි හොඳ quality අයට high salary දීලා ගන්න. Quality නැති අයව නිකන්වත් ගන්න නැහැ. Right? Build in quality. Build in quality. එතකොට in එකට තියෙනවනේ quality කට්ටිය. Quality people, quality management, quality environment, quality process, then naturally it's a quality product. That is how you do it. මේක බලහත්කාරයෙන් quality product ගන්න බෑ. ළමයි අර මේ බලහත්කාරයෙන් හදන්න බෑ වගේ. හැබැයි මේවා ටික කරනකොට ඉබේම මේ quality product එක එළියට. So that is what is mean by build in quality. That is why in software field, IT field, there's a high salary for the best players, and if you are not, if you're below the expectation, you don't get the job at all. Right? Maybe your friend get 300,000 rupees starting salary, you get no job at all. Maybe you are below quality. ඒතර යාට දෙන්න පුළුවන් නෑ. යාටත් මටයි දෙන්නටම ලක්ෂ එකමාර දෙනවා නම් හොඳ නැද්ද? නෑ එහෙම දෙන්න බෑ. එහෙම දෙන්නේ නෑ. එකමාර දෙන්නට දෙන්නේ නෑ. එතකොට එයාව තුනකට අරගෙන ඔයාට කියනවා ඔයාව ගන්නෙම නෑ. කොච්චර ඉන්ටර්විව් ගියද? Maybe you don't have that quality. Maybe you don't have that attitude. Right? Because it's total quality that is expected. When you join a team, so you must match into that team, that team's attitude, that team's quality. Right? So then, remember we talk about performance. වැඩේ වෙන්න නම් මොකද වෙන්න ඕන? quality කට්ටිය වැඩ කරන්න ඕන. quality process එකක් තියෙනවා. Don't overwork. කරන්න පුළුවන් ප්‍රමාණයට වැඩ කරන්න ඕනේ. ඒ කියන්නේ ටීම් එක එක්ස්පෙක්ට් කරන්න ඕනේ ඒ වගේ. ඒතකොට ඔයාට කරන්න පුළුවන් ප්‍රමාණය වෙන්න බෑ ඒක. හරි ටීම් එකේ expectation එක. But that should not be too much. And also reduce waste. අනවශ්‍ය බයිලා ගන්න එපා. Minimally sufficient ceremony. That means you don't waste your time. Right? Just minimum amount of documentation, minimum amount of meetings, minimum amount of design. Right? So everything is essential things we do, minimum things. So then you have plenty of time. Then you have plenty of time. Otherwise, you are so busy with all these bullshit. Okay. Right. So that is called minimal sufficient ceremony. Minimal sufficient ceremony. ඕගොල්ලෝ දන්න ඉස්කෝලේ හැමදාම ඕගොල්ලන්ගේ විනාඩි 15ක් 20ක් සමහරට පැය භාගයක් කෑවේ කවුද? උදේ පාන්දර 7:00 ඉස්කෝලේ පටන් ගත්තම 8ට තමයි ආයි පටන් ගන්න. ඇත්තටම. දැන් මම ගොඩක් කාලේ ඉස්කෝලේ යන කාලේ දොරෙන් ගේට්ටුවෙන් නෙමෙයි ඉස්කෝලේට යන්නේ තාප්පෙන්. මම ගොඩක් කාලේ තාප්පෙන් ඉස්කෝලේට යනවා. මම ඉස්කෝලේ යන්නේ 8ට විතර. අර බයිල ඉවර වෙනකොට අපි තාප්පෙන් ඉස්කෝලේට යනවා. ඒකට හොඳ ගස් ලැබු ගහක් එහෙම තිබුණා. පයින්න ලේසි වෙන්නද? සමහර දවස්වල ප්‍රිෆෙක්ට්ලා අල්ල ගන්නවා අපි ගණන් ගන්න නැහැ. ප්‍රිෆෙක්ට්ලාගේ වැඩේ ප්‍රිෆෙක්ට්ලා කරපළා අපේ වැඩේ අපි කරන්න. ඉඳලා හිටලා පොඩ්ඩක් අවුවේ ඉන්නවා. සතියේ මාසෙක දවසක් විතර. හැබැයි අපි අපේ වැඩේ දිගටම කරගෙන ගියා. Because we don't like it. ඒතර පොඩි කාලේ අපි අජය ගණන් හිටියේ නෑ. නමුත් අපේ ඇඟේව තියුණා. මේවා මහා බොරු බයිලා කියලා. Right? Minimum sufficient ceremonies. ඒතර අපි ටියුෂන් පන්තියට ගිහිල්ලා පැය භාගයක් ඉන්නේ නැහැ. ටියුෂන් පන්තියට ගියේ කීයටද? ගිය වෙලාවෙ ඉඳලා ඉගෙන ගත්තා. එතකොට ඉස්කෝලේ දවස් 5ක් තිස්සේ එකමාර කරපු වැඩ ටික අපි පැය දෙකකින් ඉගෙන ගත්තා ටියුෂන් පන්ති. මොකද සබ් සෙරමනීස් නෑ ගිය ගමන් නවත්තපු තැනින් පටන් ගන්නවා සිලබස් ඉවර කරනවා. Okay. So minimum sufficient ceremonies. So that is how the private sector works. This is how the things should work. Don't waste your time for unnecessary things. Unnecessary things. So don't waste your time for unnecessary documentation, unnecessary meetings. That is why we have stand-up meetings. හිටගෙන meeting එක තියන්නේ හැමදාම නේද? වාඩි වුණාම නැගිටින්න කම්මැලි මිනිස්සු. කයිය ගන්න කට්ටිය ඒ පාර කයිය ගන්න පටන් ගන්නවා. ලොකු කතන්දර කියන්න පටන් ගන්නවා. ඇයි වාඩිලා එහෙම ඉන්නේ? වැඩ කරන අයට කයිය ඕනේ නැහැ. Right. So that's it. That's it about agile principles. Right. So we'll go through few past paper questions, second paper questions, right? Not MCQs. MCQs, past papers anyway, we'll take it separately. But at the end of each session, I want you to have a bit of a idea about the expectation for the exams also, right? Right. So define the term work in progress in Agile 2023 paper 2. Question 1A1. So what is mean by work in progress? WIP. Something you have start or something a particular task that has been started but not yet finished. That is called WIP. Any task that has been started but not yet finished is WIP. Maybe you can explain a little bit more about because anyway it says just define. එනවට ඔයිට ලියන්න දෙයක් නැහැ. ඊට ලියන්න දෙන්න we just it say define not discuss. Right? Any task or item that has started but not yet finished is WIP. Yes, WIP refer to the amount of work that has been started but not yet completed in the workflow. මොකද define කරන්න ගමන් වෙන වෙන කතන්දර කියන්න ඕනේ නැහැ. Right, next question. What is mean by time boxing in agile software development? So what is mean by time boxing? Because we discussed, right? So time boxing means each iteration needs fixed time, short and fixed time, and we don't extend the deadlines. So deadlines are not extensible. We fix it. That is called time box, right? So maybe you can explain why. Otherwise, there will be dragging of the work in progress, WIPs, and the progress. So time boxing facilitate prioritization, measuring the progress, right? Force developers to prevent over optimizations, right? Waste in time. So that kind of advantages are there. Maybe you can explain few advantages also. But first explain what is time boxing, right? So deadlines are not extended. When there's a deadline, the delivery must happen there. But we can reduce the number of features. That is fine. Because ඔය දෙකම කරන්න බෑ නේද? Features reviews නොකරට වෙලාවට දෙනවනේ ඉතින් බෙල්ල මිරි ගන්න ඕන developers ලාගේ. නේද? උඹලා පහක් පටන් ගත්තා දැන් පහම දෙන්න ඕනේ මේ දවසට දෙන්නත් ඕනේ. එහෙම කරන්න බෑ නේද? එහෙම කරන්න developers ලා මිරි කර ගන්නවා. So therefore we compromise the number of deliverables but not the deadline. Why? So this should make sure that no over optimization, right? Lesser number of WIPs, no undue delays, right? Predictable planning, so many advantages. Maybe you can explain a little bit, okay? Time boxing, the act of putting strict time boundaries around an action or activity like iteration, it offers fixed schedule. ඒගොල්ලෝ advantage බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන්නේ නැහැ. ඒ advantage වගේ ඒවා ටික පොඩ්ඩක් ලියවට කමන්නේ නැහැ. සමහරවිට ඒවත් expect කරොත් කියලා. හරි. හැබැයි එකක් බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන්නේ නැහැ. Just the definition. Right. Write down one benefit of having time boxing. ඒක ඊළඟට අහලා තියෙනවා. ඒක දැක්කම. ඒක ඊළඟට අහලා තියෙන හන්ද තමයි අරකේ බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන්නේ නැත්තොට. ඒකත් ඔයාලට සමහරට exam එක වෙන්න පුළුවන්. මුළු question එකම කියවලා ඉන්න නැත්නම් ඊළඟ question එකට ඕන එක මේක ලියලා ඉවරයි. ඒ පාර cut and paste කරන්න බෑනේ ඔයාලට paper එකේ. අය ඔන්න advantages ඊළඟට අහලා තියෙනවා. And it says just one benefit. එකක් හොඳම එකක් අරගෙන explain කරන්න. හොඳම එකක් අරගෙන explain කරන්න. Right? Finishes WIP limits. Sorry, establish WIPs. Force prioritization because you need to prioritize because you have deadlines. Demonstrate the progress. Avoid unnecessary perfectionism. Motivate closure. දැන් ඔයාලට close කරන්න වෙනවා මෙතන task. ඒකෙන් දා හැමතිස්සෙම ටාස් වැඩි ගන්න පටන් ගන්න නැහැ. මොකද ඔයා තුනක් පටන් ගන්න තුනම ක්ලෝස් නොකර ඉන්නවට වැඩිය ඔයා බලන හැමතිස්සෙම එකක් පටන් ගන්න ක්ලෝස් කරන්න. මොකද ඔයා දන්නවා මේ ඩෙඩ්ලයින් එක එක්ස්ටෙන්ඩ් වෙන්නේ නැහැ. ඔයා ඩෙඩ්ලයින් එක එක්ස්ටෙන්ඩ් වෙනවා කියලා හිතුනොත් එහෙම මොකද කරන්නේ? තුනම පටන් ගන්න. ඇයි ඔයා දන්නවා ඩෙඩ්ලයින් එක්ස්ටෙන්ඩ් වෙනවා. දැන් ඔයාට එහෙම කරන්න හිතෙන්නේ නැහැ. Right? Improve predictability because these timelines are fixed. So you don't need to explain all, just one. මේවයින් එකක්. Right. So that is just to give you the feeling of what kind of questions they ask. Okay. Right. So after the break, now we have done two topics. Right. We'll move on to third and fourth topics together. Right. එහෙම තමයි ඔයාගේ note එකේ තියෙන්නේ. Second, third and fourth, both topics as a combined topic. Okay. Right. So now we move on to our next two subtopics. Uh, Scrum-based agile development. So last topic is about values or the philosophy. This topic is about the process. Right? It's all about values, philosophy, and process. Right. So we can do this fast because this is more related to the process. And we had a bit of overview about this in the very first day. Right. Right. So first we will look at few more theory, critical aspects in your notes. Then we'll move on to the agile software development process. And here we will be focusing on Scrum-based development. So remember the two main approaches are Scrum-based development and extreme programming. But this topic is be focusing on Scrum-based. Your last topic is extreme programming, which is the old approach. Right. So first we will look at what is mean by SYNFIN framework. So this is a general theory uh, that, so this particular framework try to understand 5 situational domains or 5 different type of situations. This is not only for the software development. So anything like political, economic, right? Or any other situation. It can be a situation in a project as well. Okay. Right. Because for different situations, you need to behave, tackle in a different way, right? So therefore, this particular framework identify five possible possible situations and how to behave in those 5 situations, right? So these are the classification categories of situations. What are those 5 situations that SYNFIN framework identify? Simple situations, complicated situations, complex situations, chaotic situations, disorder or confusion situations related to disorder or confusion. Okay. Right. So the word itself says what is simple situation. Sometimes we use the word non-knowns. Right? Known knowns, known unknowns, unknown unknowns. So that is how the first three is categorized. Known knowns means highly predictable, right? Highly predictable situations. That's a general situation that you may have seen previously. You have experienced. So that is called simple situation, right? Simple situation. So in simple situation, or non-knowns situation, the SYNFIN framework suggests this is the way to behave. What is that? You sense, organize, respond. This is the typical behavior in a normal situations. You sense it, you try to understand the situation, then you organize your resources and so on, plan and organize, and then respond, execute your plan. So that is the typical way of we address situations. Right. So the second situation, according to SYNFIN framework, is called complicated situation. So that is known unknowns. Right. So maybe you have predicted these things, but now you are in that kind of a complicated situation. But you know that these kind of complications can happen, and now you are in that kind of a complication. Okay. For example, you know that when you go for the exams, you may pass or fail, but now you have failed. But you knew it. This possibility is there. At least that possibility is there. But now it's called complicated situation. Known unknowns. So in that kind of situation, the Symphony framework says sense, analyze, and respond. Because this is a complicated situation, you need to do a bit of analysis of the current situation again, and then respond. Here you respond according to your plan organization. But you need to analyze the situation because it's a complicated situation, and then respond. So according to Symphony framework, the third possibility is complex or unknown unknowns. Unknown unknowns. This is little bit of a surprise to you, right? Surprising situation. Maybe you have not predicted about this, but you are in that kind of a situation. That is called complex situations. So according to Symphony framework, it says you can go for probe, sense, and respond. So you need to do a bit of a probe. Probe එකක් කියන්නේ පොඩි දැන් මේ අතීන තත්ත්වය පොඩ්ඩක් හොයලා බලන්න ඕන. ගැටලු complex situation එකදී. So then you sense it. So here straight away you sense it, but in order to sense now you need to probe the situation because this is
Sir, I
unknown.
can't understand what is pro.
Probe means examine. Right? Probe means examine. You think about the situation. Like when there's a robbery, the police come and do a probe. There is something like examine. Okay. It's a little bit more serious than analyze. Right? Little bit more serious than analyze. So that is why the word probe is used rather than analyze. Right? So then you sense the situation after the probe and then you respond. So according to Symphony framework, the fourth situation is called chaotic situation. Chaotic means it's sort of a messy. Okay. Okay. So then your task is first you need to act. So you need to take quick decisions because it's a chaotic situation. First you need to act. Then someone will say, how do you act? It depends on your experience and so on. Right? So then you sense and then respond because you need immediate actions. It's like, so there's a heart patient with heart attack. So then if there's a doctor, the doctor will first act, right? Using his experience or whatever, then he will think about the next step because first you need to take quick actions, right? Quick actions. Okay. So that is chaotic situation, act, sense, and respond. The fifth situation is interesting one, disorder or confusion. So that means, so you even know you don't have good sense about what is that situation is. It's confusion, right? You don't know whether it's stable or unstable. You don't know whether things are going well or things are not going well. So that means it's a confusion. Of course, in that kind of a situation, the Sinfing framework doesn't suggest a particular approach because you never know what is the exact situation. So then, of course, first of all, you need to get rid of the confusion and identify whether it's chaotic, complex, complicated, or simple situation, and then act accordingly. First of all, you need to get rid of the confusion. Maybe, right, bit of look at the situation, assess the situation. Right. So that is called Fin framework, right? Complex, at least remember the five situations, right? Simple, complicated, complex, chaotic, disorder. Maybe in MCQs, I don't think they have asked these things any so far. They can ask, say, in a complicated situation, what should be the sequence of actions? Maybe MCQ, right? I don't know. I know that it's difficult to memorize, but at least try to remember these five situations and maybe possibly how to act in maybe one or two of these. Okay. Right. So that is a subtopic. Now we move on to agile methods. So there are different, remember agile is a method approach. There are some methods based on agile. Right. So the most popular is Scrum-based development right now. But before Scrum-based development, the most popular was extreme programming. Actually, at that time, there was nothing called Scrum based. It was extreme programming. So then Scrum based development became more popular. And now we use more less and less talk about XP, but it doesn't mean that XP is not valid. Of course, almost all the good features of XP we are using in Scrum base. Then there are some other approaches like Lean, Kanban, but those are more used in manufacturing. Remember, Agile is not just software development, right? This is a management concept. This is part of the human civilization, evolution. So therefore, especially lean and Kanban approaches were developed in Japan, right, during 1980s and early 1990s. So that is how they developed these big companies like Toyota, Honda, right? High quality products. Like you know that Toyota vehicles, Honda vehicles, very high quality products, very competitive. So how did they build that kind of a businesses? So they use these agile approaches very early days. And you know that even you can see that now, remember one of the approach of concept of agile is lean. Right? You know that Japanese people are extremely lean, right? Japanese මිනිස්සු හරි කෙට්ටු කට්ටිය. කෙට්ටු කියන්නේ ඒගොල්ලෝ unhealthy නෑ. ඒගොල්ලෝ අපි වගේ බැරල් නෙමෙයි. හරි. ලංකාවේ ගත් මිනිස්සු ගත්තොත් බහුතරයක් බැරල්. නේ. But they are very lean. ඒවා ඇඟේම තියෙනවා ඒගොල්ලන්ට. ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ ඇඟේම තියෙනවා මේ leanness වගේ කතන්දර. Right? Right. So therefore, lean, Kanban are agile methods, but more used in manufacturing areas rather than software development. But anyway, those concepts from lean and Kanban, those are also absorbed by these approaches. Right. So therefore, these approaches can learn from each other. Right. But now we will concentrate on Scrum-based development. Because extreme programming we will discuss as your last topic, 10th topic. Right. How do you understand Scrum-based development process? Because this is software development process, agile process. You understand the Scrum phases, Scrum artifacts, Scrum roles, Scrum activities. Okay. Right. So that is how you do it. Scrum-based development. So by the way, how did this word Scrum came? Scrum. So it came from rugby. So you know that in rugby there's something called Scrum, where the ball is releases and the two teams try to get the ball from using their legs. So that is how they use, that is from which they got the name, right? Scrum-based development, right? Right. So we are going to look at the Scrum phases, Scrum artifacts, Scrum roles, and Scrum activities. Okay. So this is the big picture. I have discussed this about the big picture in the previous session, first session. So what are the Scrum roles? Only three: product owner, team, and Scrum master. Right. So now I'm going to do it faster because we have already discussed these things. Overview: product owner, the team, Scrum master. Then what are the Scrum activities? Product backlog. Of course, the product backlog contains another artifact called user stories. Then sprint backlog, another artifact. Burn down and burn up charts. Finished product orders. Potentially shippable work product increment. So additionally, we have some more artifacts like sprint task board and so on. Okay. So those are the artifacts. So then what are the sprint activities or Scrum activities? You have the sprint planning meeting, daily Scrum meeting, sprint review, sprint retrospective. So then there's something called product grooming meeting. Okay. So we can identify the tasks, artifacts, roles. Other than that, we can identify phases also that we will take separately. Phases, roles, artifacts, tasks. Okay. Right. So remember this is agile development. So therefore, obviously we use agile values, right? And it's time box iterative. We use adaptive planning. It's a very simple method. We use modern terminology. And in order to do Scrum-based development, we need self-contained, self-motivated team members, right? We value leanness, simplicity in agile Scrum-based development, and also a lot of customer focus, customer collaboration. So anyway, those are part and parcel of agile methods, any agile methods. So just keep those in mind when you learn agile method, Scrum-based development. Right. So first we will look at the Scrum phases. Right. Scrum phases. So we can identify it as pre-game, sprints, post-game. Okay. So each sprint, pre-game, sprint, post-game. Okay. So that is for each sprint. For the project also, we will look at like this. For the project, pre-game, your work, and the post-game. So that is for the project. This is for the each sprint, each cycle. Sorry, each scrum. Okay. This is for the project. Project also you can say pre-game, post-game, and the your work, your iterations. But here we look at one scrum, one iteration, pre-game, post-game, and sprint. Okay, right. So pre-game is mainly planning and preparation, like sprint planning meeting and those kind of things. Sprint is that cycle. Post-game is reviews, then retrospection and that kind of things. Okay, post game. So here we use the word game. දැන් scrum කියන වචනේත් ගත්තේ අපි rugby වලින් ඉතින් මෙතනක් කියන්නේ game කියලා. හරි. So that is just to make it casual, right? Because this is something that software developers build, not academically built process. Okay. Right. So pre-game, set the stage, plan things, right? Plan things. It's more project management activity. Right. So the activities are understand the goals and objectives, clarify requirements, estimate efforts. So the deliverables are for each sprint backlog, right? Plan, schedule, sprint plan. So then you have the sprint. So each day's work is called a scrum, daily scrum. So team involved in developing, testing, and the deliverable of the sprint is the potentially shippable product increment. So then you have the post game. That is where first you do the sprint demonstration, sprint review. The team demonstrate the new features that you have released uh, in the live environment or the development environment to the product owner, and product owner provide the feedback, quick feedback. Later, product owner can provide detailed feedback. So then you can have the sprint retrospective. That is also post game because now the product increment is delivered. That is where we look at the possible improvement to the process. What went wrong, what went well, what kind of improvements we are going to do through the process. Okay. So that is called post game. Pre-game, sprint, post game. So those are the three phases of each and every sprint. Now we'll look at the artifacts in Scrum development. User stories, product backlog, sprint backlog, burn down and burn up charts, Scrum task board, product increment. Okay. Your product itself is an artifact. Actually, that is the most important artifact because a lot of people forget about that, right? In other processes, right? So let's take one by one very quickly. So user story is a casual, short, simple way of presenting requirements. Right? It must be simple, short, right? And you write it from the point of view of the customer or user. That is why we say user story. Look at the word, right? Users කියන කතන්දර. User කෙනෙක්ගේ කතන්දර. Very casual terms we use. So that is to emphasize that this must be very simple. Okay? Because we don't go for heavy documentation. Because we think heavy documentation is waste of our time, money. So usually the user stories are written like that. As a, say, cashier or as a manager, I can or I should be able to get this particular report so that I can do my planning better or something like that. Or as a cashier, I should be able to get the payment slip so that I can hand it over to the customer. So it's very high level requirement. So details we can document separately using use case diagram, use case scenarios, and so on. And this is the high level user story. Sometimes we can just keep it in Excel sheet, right? Each user story is each row. Simple as that. So then we have the product backlog. Product backlog is a dynamic document, usually Excel sheet or spreadsheet, having all the user stories, right? Sorted according to the priority. So that is very important, right? It's a dynamic document. At any time, new user story can be added, but the user story must be added to the correct priority. So the highest priority user stories are above, lowest priority are below. It's either priority or dependence. For example, if a particular user story depends on another one, so then that user story must come below the other one because without doing the X, you can't do Y. Or maybe a particular user story is above because it's very high priority. Customer need it quick and fast. Right? So that is called product backlog. It's a dynamic document. At any time, new user story can be added, modified, deleted. It's owned by product owner. Product owner. So the ultimate responsibility is with the product owner. Product owner can at any time add, delete, modify, right? At any time. But time to time, there's something called product grooming meetings because when the product owner adds something, modify something, sometimes the team members may not aware of that because team members must be updated. So therefore, periodically there will be a meeting that can happen at any time, or sometimes we can do it before a new sprint. Okay. So they are the product owner, update the team members about what he has added, or maybe he has added a new user story, he has deleted something, user story, or he has updated user story, he has changed the priority. So those things product owner need to update to the team periodically. But product owner can do those changes at any time. So that is product backlog. So this same product backlog is used for the throughout the project. Throughout the project. And of course, there can be status like whether that user stories, which user stories are released, which user stories are not yet finalized. So there can be other statuses, but definitely there must be priority. High priority user stories are above. Okay. And so that is called product backlog. So then you can have the sprint backlog. So at the beginning of each sprint or each iteration, during the sprint planning meeting, the team build the sprint backlog. So that is a temporary backlog for the next sprint or the current sprint or current iteration. So basically you take high priority set of user stories from the product backlog to the sprint backlog. Just maybe three user stories, three or four. So typically those are high priority user stories that customer need quickly, or those are the user stories that other user stories may depend. So therefore every sprint you have a new sprint backlog, and at the end, again, beginning of the new sprint, you have another new sprint backlog. Okay. But once you take the user stories to the sprint backlog, so usually you are not supposed to change it unless there's a very urgent requirement, because the team members are working on these user stories in the next 2, 3 weeks. Okay. So therefore, typically at any time, user stories in the product backlog can be changed, but not user stories in the sprint backlog. Of course, the user stories in the product backlog, sprint backlog, the copy is here. But those who are in the sprint backlog should not be changed unless it's very, very, very critical. Okay. But here you can change any other user stories. And so that is called sprint backlog. So then the developers are assigned to these implementing these user stories and so on during the sprint planning meeting. Right. So then we have the burn down chart and burn up chart. So those are related things, but two different type of charts. One is called burn down chart. By the way, I did small changes to these slides and re-uploaded the PDF file just before the class. Okay, so if you have downloaded the PDF, maybe not today, uh, re-download this document and the next previous document PDF, because not big changes. Maybe here and there I did some changes. Okay, today morning and uploaded just before the starting of the class. Okay. So therefore, make sure you download it again. So the previous PDF and today's this PDF. Okay, right. So the burn down chart. These both these charts are to show the progress. Show the progress, because remember we use open communication. In normal project management, the progress documents are with the project manager, not with the rest of the team. Of course, the rest of the team members can, maybe they can ask to show it to them, but usually it's private thing for the project manager. But remember, in agile development, we have open culture, open communication. So therefore, the entire team should know the progress of the overall project, progress during the current sprint. So the burn down charts is for the current sprint. Current sprint. Remember, we build the sprint backlog. Say the sprint backlogs, we have taken 5 user stories. So then initially it is to do is 5. So then maybe after 2 days, maybe one item has been done. Now just 4 to do. Right? Maybe another one is done. So then it must come down, not like a straight line, because some tasks may take more days. Maybe 5, then 4, then next day itself it became 3, then became 2. But ultimately, when you reach the deadline, everything should be done. Ideally. Ideally. Say you have 5. Now, if you have finished all 5, sometimes you reach bottom before the deadline. So the deadline is Friday. Maybe by Wednesday, everything is done. So that is ideal. That is ideal, right? Because we have done. You have planned 5 user stories, and before the deadline, you have finished all 5. But at the same time, sometimes by the deadline, still maybe one remain. That is also fine. I'm not saying that is fine, but that can happen. So that means we planned for 5 user stories and we have delivered 4. Maybe the other one we can take to the next sprint, right? But anyway, at any time, this should be updated and displayed so that the team members can see the progress. So that is called burn down chart, right? Burn down chart. But for the entire project, there can be another chart. This is a more stable or more permanent chart because this is every sprint you need to start it again. But this is a long-term chart. But this is drawn as burn up. So say at the end of first sprint, maybe two user stories are done. At the end of second sprint, maybe total six done, maybe nine done, something like that. So at the end of each sprint, you can update how many additional done, maybe 10, now 12 done. So that is therefore it's going up. It's going down. So why do we draw it like going up? Because we have moving target. Here no moving target. So when at the beginning we decide, okay, we are going to take only four user stories. But here, while the project moves, there can be new user stories added. Sometimes a user story is removed. Therefore, this is the target. This is the real progress. So you have moving target. The total number of user stories can go up and down because maybe product owner decide to add another user story. Mostly it can go up, but sometimes it can go down. Maybe product owner has decided to remove a user story. So that is why we draw it upwards because it's a moving target for the project. But at the end, uh, this must meet this one ideally. That means all the user stories are delivered. But this is also moving, this is also changing. Sometimes it goes steep, flat, that means your velocity is less. Steep means your velocity is good. Velocity means how many user stories you finish per sprint. Okay. Right. So the sprint burn up chart is for the overall project progress. Burn down chart is for per sprint. Per sprint. And you must know why this is burn down and why this is burn up. Because this is a moving target, this is a fixed target. Because we take fixed number of user stories for a sprint. Okay. If user stories change because of product owner, then there will be mismatch between user stories and the product backlog itself. So that is why we don't change it during the sprint, right? So if you have already selected that for the sprint, right? So you don't change it. But other user stories, yes, other user stories, product owner can change, right? But in reality, if you have already selected for the sprint and still there's a change, right? So we need to embrace it, right? You can't run away from the reality. So therefore, still you can change it, but we try to minimize that kind of situations. That is why at the sprint planning meeting, you have the option to question clarifications and finalize these things, right? So I hope that clarify that is the other thing is, yes, your product owner can do changes, but product owner need to inform those changes to the team during the product groom meetings, which conduct time to time. So therefore, yes, product owner can do changes, but it must be informed. And product owner is not supposed to do changes to the user stories which are in the current sprint backlog. If so, he must immediately inform the team members as a special case. Okay. And get the approval from the team because otherwise the team may have already committed to those development. Maybe then we need some extra work. Maybe that user story will be taken to the next sprint, temporarily hold because it's changed. So those things you need to address in a sensible manner, but those are rare, right? Right. So next artifact is Scrum Task Board. So this work concept Scrum Task Board is adapted from Kanban board. So remember there's an agile approach called Kanban, which is mainly developed by Japanese people. I think it's developed in uh, Toyota. So they use that for their manufacturing plants. So the Kanban board, say they are manufacturing vehicles. Now the vehicle has different stages, right? So so then you can see which stage a particular vehicle is, and ideally it must be released, right? So from that same concept, Kanban board, because that gives you the overview. Of course, maybe not vehicle, maybe number of vehicles if it is a big plant, right? Or if you get a vehicle for maintenance like a garage or something, right? You can have which one is in which situation. Maybe it's fixed but not field test. Maybe not yet maintenance or the uh, work started. Maybe it's ready for the collection by the owner. So that is called Kanban board. It gives you the visibility of the overall situation of the project or the factory or whatever. So the Scrum Task Board is a variation of that, adaptation from that. Only difference is here new item can be added anytime because it's routine work. It's not a project, right? New items can be added in, say it's a garage, a new vehicle can come to the garage at any time. But in here, because this is for a sprint, uh, at the beginning, all the user stories are here. Say 5 user stories here, but you can't add it because during the sprint, you are not supposed to add new user stories. So then all the user stories will be listed in not started. Then some user stories will go from not started to the in progress. Then in progress to the done. එකම user story එක තැන් තුනක තියෙන්නේ හරි මේක ගලවලා මේව නිකන් අලවන්න තියෙන්නේ හරි බෝඩ් එකේ white board එකේ. ඒතර මේකෙන් ගලවලා ඒතර in progress වලට දානවා කවුරු හරි developer කෙනෙක් ඒ user story එක පටන් ගත්තා. ඒ user story එක ඉවර කරාට පස්සේ test කරලා ඉවරනම developer කෙනෙක් team එකේ responsible developer මේකෙන් ගලවලා මේකට දානවා. එතකොට ආට පේනවා progress එක. So ideally all the user story stickers must be in the done ideally. But if it is somewhere here or somewhere here, maybe 4 has come to done, 1 is still here. So that is fine. Then you do the release with these 4, not all 5. Okay, not all 5. හැබැයි මේ in progress වල තියෙන එක ටිකක් භයානකයි. User stories release දෙද්දි. මොකද එතකොට so it can be unstable release. එතකොට අපි ගොඩක් අයට user story එකක් in progress වලට ගන්නෙ ඉවර කරන්න බලාගෙන. හැබැයි සමහරවිට in progress එකේ තියෙන්න පුළුවන් maybe it doesn't affect your other functionalities. But it's little bit risky thing. It's little bit risky thing. Okay. So therefore you need to plan out things before selecting. You need to plan out whether we can finish it. But anyway, yes, you can keep it in progress as long as it's not going to destabilize your system. Again, the idea is give high visibility about the progress to the entire project. Okay. Right, that is called Scrum Task Board, which is adapted from Kanban board. Okay, Kanban board. ඔගොල්ලෝ මේ ඇත්තටම මේවා දකින්න ඕන නම් Google search එකේම දාලා බලන්න. What is a Kanban board කියලා තව. Okay. So these are the modern management concepts. මෙහෙම තමයි ජපානයේ වගේ දියුණු රටවල් හැදුවේ. නිකන් හැදුන්නේ නැහැ. ඒගොල්ලෝ තමයි මුලින්ම මේ concept build කරේ. හරි. මෙහෙම අලවන්න තියෙන එක අනිත් එක. හරි මාරු කරන්න. And maybe Wikipedia, you can get some more details about Kanban boards. Kanban work organizer, Kanban boards visually depicts work at various stages. Okay. So it shows the WIPs, work in progress items. Okay. WIPs. Right. So that is another artifact, Kanban board or the Scrum. We call it Scrum task boards. Okay. Not Kanban board because we have fixed a number of items for each sprint. So then the product increment itself is artifact. And actually, this is the most important artifact because at the end of the day, this is our work. Okay, so it must be fully tested, right? Designed, implemented, fully tested, and production ready. So that is why we say potentially shippable product increment. ठीक है ये वचने पाවිච්චි කරන එක potentially shippable. ship කරනවා කියන්නේ අපි customer ට දෙනවා. ඉතින් ඒක අර convention එක අපි ship කියලා කියන්නේ නමුත් අපි ship එක ගෙවන්නේ නැහැ. So that emphasize that it is product your releases must be production ready. එහෙන් මෙහෙන් test කළා මදි. Okay. Right. So now we have discussed Scrum artifacts. Now let's move to first we discuss the Scrum phases, pre-game, Scrum for the sprint, and the post-game. Then we discuss the Scrum artifacts. Now we move to Scrum roles. Scrum roles. ඇත්තට ඊළඟ topic එකේ නම Scrum roles ම තමයි. ඒක මම ඊළඟ topic එකත් ඉවර කරමු කියලා අද. හරි මේ එකම topic සමහරට ආයෙ overlap වෙනවා මෙතන. හරි. ඒ කියන්නේ මේක ඇති දෙයක් නැහැ. සමහරට ඔයාලට එකම කතන්දරේ තැන් 3-4ක තියෙනවා. මම පුළුවන් තරම් ඒවා reduce කරන්න හැදුවා. Right. What are the Scrum roles? Just 3. Scrum Master, Product Owner, Team. So Scrum Master is sort of a replacement or supplement to the manager, traditional manager. So I told you the problem with the traditional managers, right? Traditional managers ලාට තිබිච්ච ප්‍රශ්න අපි මම ඒක personally experience කරලා තියෙන. කියන්නේ මම ප්‍රශ්න ඇති කරගත්ත නෙමෙයි. අපේ team ඇතුලේ software development team ඇතුලේ managers ලා අයින් කරලා තියෙනවා. company. team එකත් එක්ක conflict වෙලා. හරි. මොකද software engineers ලා කියන්නේ මේ බය කට්ටිය නෙමෙයි software engineers ලාට job තියෙන ඕන තරම්. හරි. එතකොට ඒගොල්ලෝ managers ලා කියන පදේට නගන්නේ නැහැ. හරි. manager වැරදි විදියට manage කරන්න එනවා. So that is why we have Scrum Master. Scrum Master. ඒ දවස්වල agile නෙමෙයි තිබුණේ ඇත්තටම. මේ දවස්වල managers ලා කියලා වෙනම ගන්නවා නිකන් මේ experience දින ඔය garment factory වල managers ලා වගේ ඒවත් ගන්නවා ඒ දවස්වල. මම managers ලානේ කියන්නේ. හරි. ගත්තට පස්සේ මෙහෙ නානවා. මොකද ඒගොල්ලෝ හිතනවා මේ garment factory එකේ ඉන්න අර අහිංසක ළමයින්ට දාන පාට දාන. හරි. වැඩ කරව ගන්න. එහෙම වැඩ කරව ගන්න බෑ professionals ලාගෙන්. හරි. professionals ලාගෙන් එහෙම වැඩ කරව ගන්න බෑ. professionals ලාට තියෙන්න ඕන facilitation එක, coaching එකක් දෙන්න. එතකොට මම software engineer නම් මගේ manager මට වැඩිය දක්ෂ වෙන්න ඕන. එච්චරයි. කොහෙවත් ඉන්න හාල් පාරුවෙක්ට මම manager වෙනවට මම කැමති නෑ. මම කලින් කිව්වා මගේ first manager හරි මට ආපු හොඳ manager කෙනෙක් කියලා නේද? ඒ කියන්නේ මට වැඩිය දක්ෂ, මට වැඩිය experience. අන්න එහෙමයි තමයි manage scrum masters ලා වෙන්නේ. එහෙම නැතුව යට බෑනේ අනිත්. එහෙම නැත්නම් මොකද වෙන්නේ? පස් දෙනෙක්ව බඳව ගත්තම software engineers ලා විදිහට ඔතන ඉන්න සවුත්තුම එක හැමතිස්සෙම බලන්නේ manager. මොකද ඌට software develop කරන්න බෑ. software development කරන්න බැරි හන්ද ඒක ගිය දවස් ඉඳලා බලන්නේ manager වෙන්නේ. ඔන්න ඊට පස්සේ ටිකක් දවසක් යද්දි මොකද try කරන කාරණේ හම්බ වෙන්නේ. අරගොල්ලෝ comfortable. They like doing software engineering. So they like doing development. So they enjoy. So therefore they don't try to become manager. But other guy, because he is not capable of software development, it's very stressful to that guy. He from day one he tried to be a manager. Which is management course කරයි, project management course කරයි. පුළුවන් නම් පන්දන් අල්ලයි පුළුවන් විදිහකට එහෙම කරන්න අමාරුයි private set එකේ. එතකොට එයා ටිකක් කළා කියලා මැනේජර් වෙන්න ආද. ඊට පස්සේ මැනේජර් ඉත එතකොට අනිත් අය බලනවා ඊට පස්සේ යකෝ මේක කොහොමද යකෝ මෙතන අපේ ගාවේ ඉතින් හාල් පාරුවනේ දැන් මැනේජර්. That is why we have basically distinct the role of manager from the software engineers. Rather, the introduction of Scrum Master. So Scrum Master is a competent, experienced person who earn the respect of the other software engineers. So that means other software engineers know that this guy is more competent, more experienced person than us. So then they respect that person. And also from the Scrum Master's point of view, Scrum Master is not going to control the engineers, rather facilitate, help. So that is what we need. So that is the difference between boss versus leader. Right? ඔක සමහර search කරොත් එහෙනම් boss versus leader කියලා ඔයාලට හම්බ වෙයි slides වගේ දේවල්. Okay. It's a very interesting area. Boss versus leader. Boss කියන්නේ ඒගොල්ලෝ හොඳයි ගාමන් ෆැක්ටරි වගේ අහිංසක මිනිස්සු ඉන්න තැන් වලට. Okay. හොඳයි නෙමෙයි ඉතින් මේ මිනිස්සු වෙන කරන්න දෙයක් නැහැනේ. අහිංසකකමට. So you can see the difference between boss and leader. So in just one image, where is that? So you can see boss commands, right? Boss commands. Leader තමයි බරා දින්නේ ඉස්සරහින්ම බරා දින්නේ leader. Right? And leader is at the front. Boss is at the end. මොකද boss ට sure නෑ boss. හරි boss ට තේරෙන්නේ නෑ මේ වැඩේ කරන්න. boss ඉතින් පිටිපස්සේ ඉඳලා බයිලා ගන්නවා. Okay. boss පිටිපස්සේ ඉඳලා බයිලා ගන්නවා. So you can see boss drive employees, coach, leader coach them. Boss depends on authority, leader depends on goodwill. Boss inspire fear. එයා බය කරන්න හදනවා කට්ටියව ටිකක්. හරි එහෙම බය කරනවා bossලා. හරි. ඔයාලට promotions හම්බෙන්නේ නැහැ, salary increment හම්බෙන්නේ නැහැ. But leader so just inspire. Boss says I, leader says we. Leader is part of the team. අපි කරමු. So boss place blame on the breakdown. Leader fix the breakdown. පැරද්දතුනත් හදනවා. Boss knows how it is done. Boss දන්නවා මේක කරන විදිය. නැත්නම් දන්නවා කියලා හැසිරෙනවා. Leader shows how it is done. Leader වැඩේ කරනවා. නැත්නම් මෙහෙමයි කරන්න කියලා පෙන්නනවා. නැත්නම් යාම කරලා පෙන්නනවා. Boss ඇවිල්ලා කියනවා විතරයි. එයාට ඇත්තටම කරන්න තේරෙන්නේ නැහැ. එයා නිකන් මෙහෙම රඟපානවා. So boss take credits, leader give credits. Boss commands, leader asks, politely asks. Right? Boss says go, leader says let's go. That is why leader is up front. Okay. So what we need is a servant leader. Scrum Master is a servant leader. Scrum Master is a coach. Scrum Master is a facilitator. Right? Some Scrum Master assists the team. Some Scrum Master remove obstacles. Facilitate, help. That is what Scrum Master is doing. Okay. So that is the main role, main leadership role of a Scrum-based software development. So typically, he must be a experienced, talented person who is good at technical aspect as well as project management, people management. People management කියන්නේ මිනිස්සුන්ගෙන් වැඩක් ගන්නවා කියන්නේ බොහොම සෞම්‍ය විදියට සියුම් විදියට ගන්න ඕනේ වැඩි. බොසි විදියට ගන්න බෑ. Because these guys are highly competent, right? Software engineers like පට්ට critical thinkers ලා. පට්ට logical thinkers ලා. හරි? එතකොට ඒගොල්ලන්ට මැනේජර් කෙනෙක් හැරෙනකොට දන්නවා මූ මොකද්ද මේක එන්න හදන්නේ කියලා. මූ අපිට කැරට් අර දෙනවද? මූ අපිව අන්දනවද? හරි? එතකොට එයා රෙසිස්ට් කරනවා. බොහෝ විට මැනේජර්ස්ලට වැඩිය ස්මාර්ට් software engineers. එතකොට ඊට වැඩිය ස්මාර්ට් වෙන්න ඕන scrum master. එතකොට එතන ඉන්න හොඳම ස්මාර්ට් ඉංජිනේර් කෙනෙක්ව ගන්න එක තමයි හොඳම වැඩේ. හරි ස්මාර්ට් ඉංජිනේර් කෙනෙක්ව scrum master කරාම හරි. එතකොට ගැටුමක් නැහැ. Right. So then the product owner. So the product owner is ideally from the customer side. So ideally, he or she must be a senior manager from customer side. Senior manager because product owner must be able to take decisions. Otherwise, there will be delays. So product owner must be someone who can take the decisions, not depends on others. So that he or she must have the authority to take decisions. So otherwise, there will be a lot of delays. But if remember, product owner is not a full-time role. So he or she can just support the team remotely. Remotely. Just attend the daily Scrum meeting, which is only about 10 20 minutes, or just join those special meeting then and there, or have a communication with the team with chat, email, and WhatsApp and that kind of things. But if it is impossible to have a product owner from the customer, then you can have proxy product owner. That means your internal, that means from the software development team, we take maybe some senior manager or business analyst play the role of the product owner or the proxy කියන්නේ අපි කියන්නේ ඔයගොල්ලෝ නඩුවක් වගේ තියෙනවා නම් ඔයා වෙනුවට නඩුවේදී ඔයා වෙනුවෙන් කරුණු දක්වන්නේ කවුද? lawyer. So lawyer ඇවිල්ලා ඔයාගේ proxy. Same thing. So then we can have our team, one of our team member as a proxy product owner. Then that person need to frequently communicate with the customer or their relevant manager. But that is if there's no option. Ideally, product owner must be from the customer side. And of course, the product owner share the product vision, owns the product backlog, provide clarification on user stories. So we say product owner is a go-to person for clarification. අපි ලස්සන වචන පාවිච්චි go-to person for clarifications. Product owner prioritize the user stories. Product owner provide feedback on deliverables in sprint review meetings. And of course, the product owner negotiate with other stakeholders when there's sort of a conflicting situations about requirements, deadlines, cost. So product owner need to negotiate with customers, sites, other people. So then you have the team. So other than the product owner and the Scrum Master, all the other, we call them the team members. So they may play different roles, maybe design, develop, test, business analysis, maybe UI design, UI or backend. Right? So everyone else is called the team or team member. And the team members must be highly motivated, talented, right? All-rounders. All-rounders. අපි ඔක පස්සේ කතා කරනවා මේ T-shaped skills තියෙන්න ඕන කියලා. T-shaped skills. That means you are expert in one or few areas, expert in depth. But other areas you must have breadth skills. So that means you have overall understanding about almost everything, but at the same time expert in some areas. So you don't need someone who is expert in some areas, but no idea about other areas. That is not what we need for Scrum team. We need all-rounders. හරිය T20 team එකේ players ලාගේ. දැන් test match වලට ඉන්නවනේ වෙනම නේද? Specialized bowlers ලා, specialized batsmen, specialized keeper, සමහරට keeper keeping වලටම specialized. But T20 එහෙම බෑ. එතන ඉන්නේ බෞද්ධරයක් all-rounders. So what we need is that, but එක්ක එයා batting all-round, එක්ක bowling all-round. So රාමුත් එහෙම තමයි. So we need all-rounders and highly motivated. Right. So now we move on to Scrum activities. Right. Scrum
Sir,
phases, Scrum role.
excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Product owner and Scrum Master also in the team, right?
Yes. It depends on the way you look at it, right? In general, yes, in the team. But when we take the roles, because already we have taken the role of the Scrum Master, role of the product owner. So that when we say team, we take the other people because we have separated out those two roles. But when you look at the word team in general, yes, all these guys are in your team. But otherwise, if you again take Scrum Master to the team, then your Scrum Master is duplicated, right? We need to discuss that twice. That is why we take all the others as team, as a role. But if you take the word team as a software development team, yes, everyone is there. So here we took team as a role, okay? Because otherwise the role is duplicated. Right. So now we move on to the Scrum activities. Scrum activities. So there are so many Scrum activities, right? Uh, Sprint planning is there. Okay. A daily Scrum meeting is there. Sprint review is there. Sprint retrospective is there. Product grooming is there. And some more things are also there. Some more high level things like portfolio planning, product planning, release planning. Those are also there. Other than these typical activities. Okay. Right. So let's look at some of these. But you have a separate topic called planning. So there we will revisit these things in detail. දැන් මේ ආයි ආයි ඔයාලට එකම කතන්දර අහුවෙනවා හොඳේ. For example, your next topic is roles. ඒතර ආයි අපිට කතා කරන්න තියෙන්නේ මේ roles ටික. ඊළඟ planning වලට ආයි හම්බ වෙනවා. දැන් මෙතනත් අපි planning පොඩ්ඩක් කතා කරමු. හරි. So that is why we want to finish this quickly. මොකද එක දවසේ දෙක තුනක් කරලා ඉවර කරගන්න එක නැත්නම් ආයි ඊළඟ දවසේ ආයි මෙතන කතා කරන්න. Right. So first one is, remember in agile development, we go for hierarchical planning, right? Not planning is done and finished in a single step. Rather, we do planning at different levels, different levels. And time frame also, some planning we do early, some planning we do late. Okay. So it's done phase by phase and also hierarchical. Right? Hierarchical means high level, low level. Time wise means early days planning, planning done later. Okay. Right. So first one is portfolio planning. This is the highest level of planning. Right. So this is more business level planning. So when you take a organization, so remember they have business strategies. Then aligning with the business strategies, the overall business plan, long-term plan, you have the IT plan. So then you anticipate, okay, we need this product, that IT system, this IT system, we need to do some changes to this IT system, big changes. So it's not just one information system that you are working on or acquiring or changes, multiple information systems. So therefore, someone need to have that big picture planning. So that is called portfolio planning. Portfolio means business level, as a business portfolio. So there we consider which product to work on, in what order, for how long. So usually this planning is done by IT manager of that business organization. Okay. So it must be aligned with the long-term business strategy, business plan, and done by high-level manager. That is tier 2 manager, IT manager. Tier 2 manager, just like finance, HR, like admin, marketing. So big organization, we have now IT managers. Right? So one day you can become IT manager. හැමෝම software engineers ලා වෙන්න ඕනේ කියලා දෙයක් නැහැ නේද? සමහරවිට ටිකක් කල් ඉඳලා බැංකුවක IT manager කෙනෙක් වෙයි. So who knows, right? It depends on your liking. So then you may be involved in portfolio planning. ඉතින් මේවටත් මිනිස්සු එන්න එපා නේද? උඩින් පාත් වෙන්නේ නැහැ. ගොඩක් අය මේ වගේ දේවල් හිතනවා අඩුයි. But only thing is you can't be a IT manager after getting graduates, right? You can become IT manager maybe after 10 years of experience, 5 years of experience. Right? Portfolio planning. So there is the highest level of planning for acquiring IT systems. So then we have the product planning. So remember, in the portfolio planning, you consider multiple systems: your inventory management system, your customer relationship management system, your e-commerce platform. So then each system or each product you need a planning. How are we going to acquire this, develop this, or coordinate with the software development company to get these things? So that is for each product, each system that we are going to develop or do some modifications, we have to have product planning. Right? So one portfolio plan, but multiple product plan. So you need to set the product vision, high level product backlog, product roadmap. So maybe the person who is doing the product planning will ultimately become the product owner in the agile development. Or initially these are done by IT manager, and maybe IT manager become the product plan, product owner of the team, agile team, because it's a part-time work. Right. So that is called product planning. It is for individual products, individual system acquisitions. So then you need a release planning. Okay. So how many releases, how many iterations, what are the rough time frame for these? Of course, these are not hard and fast time frames. But remember, we try to fix those right time box as well. But maybe you plan for four iterations, but you may ended up in six iterations. That is fine. But at least you must have initial planning about releases. Sometimes there can be some overlapping or some interdependencies between systems. So then for each system, there must be some synchronization of release planning. Okay, so that is called release train. We will discuss about these things because we have planning as separate topic, right? Portfolio planning, product planning, release planning. So this release planning can be done once you finalize your scope, budget, that kind of things. Okay. So we will revisit these later, not today. So then of course the sprint planning. So that is each iteration. So it's planning for each iteration. So that is where that is what we do at the beginning of each sprint to prepare our sprint backlog and allocate these tasks to the resources, your team members, responsibilities. So that is called sprint planning. That is at the beginning of each sprint. Okay. But the input to the sprint planning is your product planning, release planning, and those things. So then you have the sprint. Sprint is the iteration, right? 1 to 4 weeks time frame, maximum 4 week. Typically, it can be as short as 1 week as well. And of course, it is time box, right, as we have discussed. And at the end of the sprint, you must have a potentially shippable product increment. Maybe just one or two user stories, or maybe three, four user stories implemented, but it must be fully tested, stable, production ready. And each day's work is called daily scrum, right? And we start daily scrum with daily scrum planning meeting, or we call it stand-up meeting. Stand-up meeting. So remember, we have a very small number of team members in a scrum, right? Typically about less than 10. So therefore, each team member roughly take less than 2 minutes to give update. So then if you have 10, maybe maximum 20 minutes, but it doesn't mean you always need 2 minutes. That is maximum. It's stand up because you don't need to sit because it's ends very quickly. So typically, every team member must talk, each team member, not some, and each team member must give update on these. Of course, no one is asking these questions, but his briefing must include what did I do yesterday? Because now this is the new day, today's morning. So what did I do yesterday? What I'm planning to do today? Are there anything blocking my today's task? If not, no, I can proceed with my work. If there's thing that is going to block you, in this meeting, you are not going to discuss, but maybe the Scrum Master can and the relevant people can remain and resolve that while the others go for their work, right? But not in this daily Scrum planning meeting, you discuss about that. But you need to tell that there's an issue for me to proceed today. Remember, otherwise it will be idle work. Work cannot proceed, right? Right. So this is a typical update by a software developer in a daily Scrum meeting. Today I'm going to work on the stored procedure task and I should have that done by lunch. Whoever is going to work on the business logic task, please keep in mind that the business logic task is on the critical path for getting our work done this sprint and you should be ready to work on it right after lunch. So that is his plan for this. දැන් ඒතර කාට අහන්නකද මේක ලන්ච් එකෙන් පස්සේ වැඩ කරන්නේ නැද්ද? සමහරට ලන්ච් එකෙන් පස්සේ වැඩ කරන්නේ නැතුව යනවා. ඒක අපිට ප්‍රශ්නයක් නැති වෙන්න. මොකද අපේ ස්ප්‍රින්ට් එකට අදාළ වැඩ ටික වෙනවා. මේවි ලන්ච් එකෙන් පස්සේ යට පුළුවන් තව කෙනෙක්ට උදව්වක් කරන්න. ගොඩක් අයට ඔයා සීනියර් ඩිවෙලොපර් කෙනෙක් වුණාට පස්සේ සීනියර් සොෆ්ට්වෙයාර් ඉංජිනේර කෙනෙක් වුණාට පස්සේ ටිකක් කරනකොට ඔයාලට තේරෙයි ඔයා ඇත්තටම කරන්නේ 130ක් විතර ඔයාගේ වැඩ 70ක් විතර අනිත් අයට උදව් කරන එක. It's a wonderful experience as well. right? ඇත්තට මේක තමයි වෙන්නේ. For example, if you are a tech lead or architect, actually you are not doing development. right? Architect කෙනෙක් වගේ වුණාට පස්සේ ආ develop කරන්නේ නැහැ. ඔයාට තියෙන අනිත් අයට help කරන්න. මොකද ඔයා architect එක හැදුවට පස්සේ අනිත් අයත් එක්ක ඒවා finalize කරලා පස්සේ ඔයා ගොඩක් අය develop ඔයාට free time එකේ ඔයා develop කරන්න පුළුවන් but actually formally there is no task for you. Your task is uh, helping others. But sometimes you work more than others. මොකද ඔයා free වෙනකන් අනිත් අය බලන් ඉන්නවා සමහරවිට. හරි. ඔයා පොඩ්ඩක් ඉන්න මේක ඉවර කරලා එන්නම් කියලා. Because most of the time when you become more and more expert, so a lot of others depends on you. At the same time, of course, as a software developer, you must not depends on others, but this is the reality with new technologies and so on. So therefore, it doesn't mean that he is going to come and do the coding for you, but he is going to help you if you are stuck. It doesn't mean that you are going to get the help from that guy each and every day. Maybe you get the help once in a while, but there are other team members. Right? But when you become more and more senior, more and more competent, more and more comfortable, so you will spend more and more time to help others as well, because you can do your task quickly. So then you have plenty of time to help others. ඊට පස්සේ ආව ඉන්ටර්විව්ස් වල කරන්න ගන්නවා. ඒකට ඔයාගේ ටාස්ක් අඩු වෙන්නේ නැහැ. නමුත් ඔයාට පුළුවන් ඒක පැයකමාරක් සතියකට පැයකමාරක් දෙකක් ඇලොකේට් කරන්න ඒ වගේ වැඩවලට. Because you need to hire team members for the organization. Right. So another task is sprint review. So when we give a release at the end of the sprint, the product owner, so the team members need to demonstrate, go through the product functionalities, what they have implemented. Then the product owner can give feedback, some quick feedback, but later product owner can take in more time or any other people. But product owner can give some quick feedback uh, in the sprint review. Okay, sprint review. So it's like handing over the functionalities to the customer. Okay. So then after the sprint review, you have the sprint retrospective. That is where we discuss about the process, what went really well during the last sprint, what went wrong, what are the issues you face, what kind of improvements you want to do in the next sprint. So that is called continuous process improvement. Remember, the new approach is continuous process improvement, not ask the auditors to come and improve our process. We improve ourselves. It's an internal motivation because we want to do things better. And so that is called sprint retrospective because we want to do things better in the next sprint, next 3 weeks. Right? So these are the possible issues that you will find and you want to fix in the next sprint. Sorry, these are the possible issues that can happen in sprint retrospective meetings if you don't do it properly. Right? මෙහෙම දේවල් වෙන්නේ නැහැ සාමාන්‍යයෙන්. නමුත් if the team members don't know what is sprint retrospective is, so if they come to the meeting with traditional mindset, so these things can happen. What are those? Some people may think, okay, this is not important. මේක අපිට ඕනේ නැහැ. තේරුමක් ඇති වැඩක් නෙමෙයි. That is low attendance. No follow up. So that means you talk about things, but no one follow up whether these improvements are done. Okay. So sometimes we call it all fluff, no stuff. හරි අපි කියන්නේ කයිය විතරයි වැඩ නැහැ. හරි කයිය විතරයි වැඩ නැහැ සමහරවල්ලාට. So those are the possible pitfalls. කියන්නේ අරම කරොත් මේම කරොත් කියන හැබැයි ඊළඟ පාරක් කරන්නේ පරණ විදිහටම තමයි. That is why someone need to coordinate this. Someone need to follow up. So ignoring the elephant in the room. So that means when there are big issues in the project or in the process, so the people concentrate on small things. So that is where the Scrum Master need to take control in certain situations. Or poor facilitator, no, right? So usually the Scrum Master need to do the facilitation. Schedule it, make sure that everyone attend, notes taken, follow up. So you need a facilitator. Depressing and energy draining. It's something like taking too much of time for these discussions and so on. Right? Blame game. So that means if the last, because remember, we always like to talk about positive things, right? අපි දැන් මේ ඩිස්කෂන් වල කතා කරන හැමතිස්සෙම මොනවා වගේද? පොසිටිව් දේවල්. දැන් මේක මේ විදිහට ලස්සනට වෙලා ලස්සනට ඉවර වුණා. එහෙම වෙනවම කියලා නීතියක් නැහැ. Right? In reality, there can be a lot of struggles. Maybe in reality, you start with 5 user stories and deliver only one. That can happen. Some project fail. Some project in the middle we stop it. So therefore, the reality is not always rosy. So in that kind of situation, maybe your sprint retrospective meeting become a blame game. Blame game. Because in any field, we don't experience only positive things, right? We experience negative. That I told you that sometimes there's a conflict between team members, conflict between the team and the customer. සමහරවිට ප්‍රොජෙක්ට් එකේ යද්දි කස්ටමර් පේමන්ට්ස් කරන්නේ නැහැ, කස්ටමර් වැඩි අතහැරලා. So that is not a good situation, right? It's a stressful situation for the team members. Then the higher management need to take those stress control of that. Right? So it can become a complaint session in worse scenarios and replaces ad hoc process improvement. නිකන් අර කරන්නම් වාලේ කියන්න මොන හරි කියන්න ඕනට කට්ටිය මොන හරි කියන්න පුළුවන් without any purpose. Or too ambitious. සමහරු ඉන්නවනේ ද පොරටෝක් දෙන කට්ටිය. So make sure it doesn't lead to this kind of a situation. දැන් සමහර ෆයිනල් ඉයර් ප්‍රොජෙක්ට් එක කරද්දිත් එහෙම තමයි. හරි too ambitious. හරි පළවෙනි දවසේ දෙන ටෝක්ස්. සමහරට අපි විශ්මයටපත් වෙනවා. සමහරට අහනවා ඔයා මේ software development කරන්නේ? සමහරවිට ඇත්තටම software development කරන්න. මොකද අපි දන්නවා මේ වගේ දෙයක් කරන්න බෑ. මේ අපි අහනවා. ඒතකොට යාගෙන ඔව් මේ මම software development field එකේ තමයි ඉන්න ගමන් තමයි මේ ඩිග්‍රී කරන්න කියලා. මොකද අපි දන්නවා සමහර දේවල් එහෙම එකපාර අලුත් කෙනෙක්ට first project එකේ කරන්න බෑ. මේ සමහරව ඇත්තටම එහෙම talks දෙනවා. සමහරට ඒගොල්ලෝ හොයාගන්නත් නැහැ ඊට පස්සේ. That means that person has no realistic idea about what he or she is doing. දෙපැත්තම වෙනවා. සමහරු පට්ට බයයි. ඒ කියන්නේ ඒගොල්ලන්ට මෙලොවම දෙයක් තේරෙන්නේ නැහැ. සමහරුන්ට ඒ කියන්නේ මෙලොවම දෙයක් තේරෙන්නේ නැහැ හැබැයි එන පොරටෝ. ඔයගොල්ලෝ අහලා ඇති නේද? ඩනින් කුගන් ඉෆෙක්ට් කියන එක. අහලා තියෙනවද? මම සමහරට පෙන්නලා ඇති ඔයගොල්ලන්ට. ඩනින් කුගන් ඉෆෙක්ට්. maybe maybe I have spell it correctly. ඩනින් කුගන් effect. There's a nice graph for that. मैं अमित මැනේජ්මන්ට් කියන්නේ තව ඉගෙන ගන්න ඔයගලන්ට සෑහෙන දේවල් තියෙනවා හරි. ඒ කියන්නේ right. So when someone just starts something, like start learning, දැන් ඔයගොල්ලෝ ඉන්නේ software development ගැන beginner level එකේ. තාම ඔයගොල්ලන්ට project experience නැත්තම්. right. දැන් මේවා ටිකක් කරාම Java ටිකක් කරාම database ටිකක් කරාම හරි හිතෙන්න පුළුවන්. All of a sudden your confidence is sky high. ටිකක් ඉගෙන ගත්ත අයගේ confidence එක පට්ට high. ඒක හැමෝටම වෙන්නේ නැහැ සමහරුන්ට. ඒක සමහරුන්ට characteristic එකක් තියෙනවා. අර ටිකක් පොර මානසිකත්වයෙන්. So you can see. So their knowledge is only this much. ඒ කියන්නේ මේ දැන් තමයි ඉගෙන ගන්න පටන් ගත්තේ. But their confidence is this high. Right? Peak ගිහිල්ලා එකපාරට. So then what happens? When you learn more and more and you start doing hands-on things, practical things එහෙම කරන්න පටන් ගන්නවානේ ඊට පස්සේ. So then මොකද වෙන්නේ? Your confidence going down. Now you see the reality. Now you see the reality. සමහරවිට ඔයාගේ confidence එක පට්ටම පහළට වැටෙනවා. සමහරු ප්‍රොජෙක්ට් එක පටන් ගන්න මෙන්න මේ ලෙවල් එකේ. පට්ට බයයි. සමහර ප්‍රොජෙක්ට් එක පටන් ගන්න මෙන්න මේ ලෙවල් එකේ. එතකොට මේ ලෙවල් එකේ පටන් ගන්නයි මේගොල්ලන්ට වැඩිය භයානකයි. ඇයි ඒ? ඒගොල්ලෝ තාම කතන්දරේ රියැලිටි එක දන්නේ නැහැ. Right? So when you learn more, especially when you try to do things hands on, your confidence goes very low. This is a normal thing. ඒක මේ cycle එක ඔයා යන්න ඕන. So then what happens? Then you really know things. You really do things, get the experience. You really get, this is your real confidence. This is a fake confidence. This is a fake confidence. සමහර මෙන්න මේ fake confidence එකේ තමයි final year project එක පටන් ගන්න. ඔන්න ඒගොල්ලෝ තමයි එන පොර talk දෙන්නේ. අපි සමහරට විශ්මයටපත් වෙන්නේ නැහැ කොහොමද මෙච්චර දෙයක් මූ කරන්න කියලා. සමහරු මෙන්න මේ level එකේ තමයි ඉන්නේ. හැබැයි ඔය project එක පටන් ගන්නකොට මෙන්න මේ වගේ level එකක. Right? So that is why you need to do hands-on things. Right? Database design, coding, web development. Right? So then this is your real confidence. මේ ඔන්න ආයෙ එනවා මේ level එකට. හැබැයි එන්නේ අවුරුදු 4ක් 5ක් ගිහිල්ලා. So that is your real maturity. That is your real matured confidence. Right? So that is called Dunning-Kruger effect. It's a real scenario. Dunning-Kruger effect. So it's applicable to businesses, like it's applicable for any career. any career. දැන් ඔයගොල්ලෝ ඉතින් මේ වගේ ලෙවල් එකකදී ડોක්ටර් කෙනෙක්ට ඔපරේෂන් එකක් එහෙම කරන්න උනොත් මේක මුළු ශරීරෙම කපනවා. ડોක්ටර් කෙනෙක්ට ඇත්තට ඔපරේෂන් එකක් කරන්න දෙන අවුරුදු 7ක් විතර ගියාට පස්සේ. 7ක් විතර ගියාට. ඉස්සෙල්ලා අවුරුදු 5ක් ඉගෙන ගන්නවා ඊට පස්සේ සීමා වාසික පුහිනවා කියනවා. අර ડોක්ටර්ස්ලා යටතේ ඉන්නවා. 7කට විතර පස්සේ තමයි යාට තනියෙන් තීරණ ගන්න දෙන්නේ. ඊට පස්සේ සර්ජන් කෙනෙක් වගේ නේද ඊට පස්සේ තමයි සර්ජන් වෙන කෙනෙක් වෙන ඉගෙන ගන්න. ස්පෙෂලායිස් වෙන්නේ. ඒත් අනිත් අයට පුළුවන් පොඩි තුවාලයකට මෙහෙමවත් දාන්න වගේ ඒවා තමයි. ඒක දෙන්නෙත් නැහැ එකපාරට. 7ක් විතර යනකම් දෙන්නේ. මොකද මේ හරියට දුන්නොත් එහෙම ඒක තනිකරම විනාශ කරනවා. හැමෝම නෙමෙයි සමහරු මේක ලොකුවට නගින්නේ නැහැ. සමහරු මේක උපරිමයටම නගිනවා. හරි. සීන් අර සෝඩා බෝතලේ වගේ. සෝඩා බෝතලේ වගේ. දවස් දෙකක් software IT කරාම හිතන් ඉන්නේ software engineer කියලා. හරි hacker කියලා. AI engineer කියලා. ඒක තමයි කියන්නේ hands on කරන්න ඕනේ. hands on කරනකොට තමයි මේ බොරු මානේ වැටිලා ආයි ඔන්න real confidence එක build වෙන්නේ. That is why you need to do things in practical manner. Right. Right. So let's get back to our discussion. Right. So the sprint retrospective, what are the possible pitfalls? Right? Because it depends on the situation, it depends on the people, culture. Okay. Right. So another task is, as I told you, product backlog grooming. Remember, product owner can add, modify user stories at any time. But remember, the team members are not working on the product backlog. Team members working on the sprint backlog. But at the same time, team members have the big overall idea about the product backlog because that is their overall idea about the product. So therefore, when the product owner did some changes, additions, removal, modification, uh, time to time, product owner must update on that and get some feedback from the team members because part of user story is the effort estimation. So product owner can give a rough estimation, but more realistic estimations you can get it from the team members. So that kind of inputs can be given during the product backlog grooming. And also product owner need to update what are the changes he has done. Sometimes he need to get the consent from the team members about certain changes. So that is called product backlog grooming. There's no specific time for this. This can happen anytime, but usually we need to do this. Usually we do this before the sprint planning meeting. Okay. Right. So we are done. Now remember we discussed about the phases earlier also. මේ phases කියන එක ඔයාගේ note එකේ දෙපාරක් කියලා තියෙනවා. මට හිතෙන විදිහට කලින් phases කියලා ඒගොල්ලෝ කතා කරන්නේ sprint එකක phases. Pre-game, post-game, that is pre-game is more sprint planning meeting and so on. Then the sprint and then sprint retrospective, sprint uh, review and so on. මොකද මේ දෙවෙනි ආයතනක තියෙන හැබැයි දෙක හරියට පටලවලා තමයි note එකේ තියෙන UCSC note එකේ. I think this time they talk the same thing. Second time, probably this is for the project. Okay. So ඒක අනුව පොඩි note එකක් දැම්ම මේක නැත්තම් ඔයාලට පැටලෙනවා මේ දෙපාරක් එකම කතන්දරේ කියන්නේ කියලා. හැබැයි පොඩි overlapping ආයේ තියෙනවා. සමහරට slides හදපු lecture එකත් පොඩ්ඩක් confuse වගේ හිතෙනවා මට. But let's take because we don't need to discuss it twice. Maybe this is for, as a whole, more big picture. Maybe this is for the project. Okay. So therefore, I just change it to project phases. Again, we can think of it as a pre-game, post-game, and your sprints. Okay. Earlier, we look at for the sprint, pre-game, post-game. But maybe this is for the project. Okay. හැබැයි මේ diagram එක නම් තියෙන්නේ pre-game, post-game කියලා sprint එකකට හැබැයි ආ. Okay. නෑ මෙතන sprint backlog එක තියෙන්නේ හරි. pre-game එකේ තියෙන project එකට එක. පේනවා. sprint backlog එක හදන්න කලින් නෙමෙයිනේ pre-game එක දාලා තියෙන්නේ. So yeah, maybe this is for the project. So these are your iterations, and this is pre-game, this is post-game for the project. Maybe project finalization here. Most probably. හරියටම හැබැයි වචන එච්චර පැහැදිලි නැහැ. Right. So then pre-game, we need to do some maybe product planning, release planning. Maybe we can do the high-level designing of the project, architecture, because those are mentioned in your note, right? Pre-game. Some initial discussions about the requirements, documentation, about the high-level requirements, maybe some high-level planning, right? Requirement planning, yes. Maybe this is for the project. A project pre-game. Then, of course, yeah, software requirement specifications, high-level architecture, deployment models, project schedule, right? Yeah, definite for the project. And your quality assurance strategies, quality QA plans for the project. So then you have the sprints, maybe 10 sprints or 7 sprints or whatever. So then you have the post game. So these are the activities during sprints, right? Sprint planning, daily scrum, development, sprint review, sprint retrospective. Right. So next slide kataවක් මේක නෑ. So you don't need this because we have already discussed this, okay? Right. So then the post game. Post game is basically post because this is a project, right? So you can have a project retrospective. You can see project retrospective. Some knowledge sharing about the project. Then on the project again, not for the next sprint. Because when you finish a project, so there are lessons learned, those things you want to take to the next projects, right? And also make sure you celebrate success. දැන් පහුගිය මාස 6ක් තිස්සේ මේ ප්‍රොජෙක්ට් එක කරා නම් ගොඩක් අර ටීම් එක ටීම් අවුටින් එකක් යනවා වගේ දේවල් කරනවා. ඒවා සාමාන්‍ය දේවල්. ප්‍රොජෙක්ට් එකක් ඉවරනාට පස්සේ ටීම් අවුටින් එකක් යනවා. ඊනොත් ටීම් මෙම්බර්ස්ලාගේ ඇනුවල් ලීව්ස් ඉනවනේ ඒගොල්ලෝ ඇනුවල් ලීව්ස් ගන්නවා. මොකද ඒගොල්ලෝ මැද ඇනුවල් ලීව්ස් වගේව ගන්න බෑ. software developers ලාට මේ දෙසැම්බර් වලම ඇනුවල් ලීව්ස් හම්බෙන්නේ නැහැ ගොඩක් අයට. හරි. ඒ දවස්වල ප්‍රොජෙක්ට් එකේ වැඩ තියෙනවා නම්. ගොඩක් අයට ඒගොල්ලෝ ප්‍රොජෙක්ට් අතර තමයි ප්‍රොජෙක්ට් දෙකක් අතර තමයි සති දෙක තුනක් නිවාඩු ගන්න. Right. Right. So that is also part of the post game, right? Because it's not only just giving effort, right? You need to celebrate. You need to have some relaxed time, fun, celebrations. Okay. Right. So now let's move on to few past paper questions. Right. 2023 paper 2, describe two methods. What can be used for managing work in progress in agile teams? Right. So this is more related to the previous topic as well. Right. How do you manage WIPs? Anyone? Two methods. දැන් මේ question එක සමානලාට පස්සේ දැන් මටත් එකපාරට ඔලුවට එන්නේ දැන් මොකද්ද මේ අහන්නේ කියලා තේරෙන්නේ නැහැ. WIP ගැන ගොඩක් දේවල් අපි දන්නවා. නමුත් මේ මොකද්ද හරියටම අහන්නේ? Two methods that can be used for managing WIP. So maybe we can say,
We can use Kanban board.
yeah, maybe yes. One is we can use Kanban board to give a visibility about the WIPs. Okay. Similarly, we can use the burn down charts. Okay. So maybe that is one of the expectation, right? Or you can, I don't know whether examiner expect something like some strategies like reduce the WIPs and make sure that WIPs don't remain longer for same WIP do not remain as a WIP for long. I don't know whether examiner think about that. Maybe you can mention both of these things. So koi පැත්තෙන් හරි උත්තරේ හරියනවා. But I think maybe the method they say about methods, yeah, maybe use of Kanban board or the don't use the word Kanban board, rather use sprint status, sprint task board. Okay. Okay, let's see what is the examiner's answer. Because the question is a little bit fussy for me. Yeah, so they mentioned Kanban board and daily stand-ups. So the examiner has used the word Kanban board, but in your slides, they mainly refer to it as sprint task board, right? Anyway, that's fine. Okay. Even we can use daily stand-up meetings because daily stand-up meetings, you are supposed to give the update, right? You are supposed to give the update about what you did yesterday, right? What you are planning to do today. So that is also basically giving updates about WIPs. WIPs. Yeah, I think that's a good answer. But you need to now this question is you need to collect your answer from different part of what you have learned. Okay. Right. Next question. That is very easy. Identify, this is 2023 paper 2, question 1B1. Identify labels A to F associated with the Scrum framework. So that is very easy, right? Product backlog, sprint planning meeting, right? This is your Scrum, potentially shippable product increment, maybe sprint review. What is this? Maybe this is your sprint. I'm not very sure. I may have a and this one goes to this. Maybe this is your sprint. Or is it uh, sprint retrospective? I'm not very sure. But this looks more sprint review meeting. Okay, sprint review. And what are the examiner's answers? Yeah, first one is obviously product backlog. This one is obviously sprint planning. Yeah, C, they have taken it as daily scrum. Then D, product increment. Yes, E, sprint review. Yes, F, මොකද මේ අලුත් process එකට connect වෙද්දී so they have taken it as sprint retrospective. So those improvement you can use from for the next cycle, for the next sprint planning.
I think there is no answer for F.
No answer for?
F.
Sorry? No.
There is no answer for F.
Why?
There is only A, B, C, D, E. Sorry.
There's F here.
Uh,
This is E, sprint review. So this is F. That means you can't see the answer for F.
yes, sir.
What do you mean by that? So in the
Sorry, sir.
share,
My the bar is
because
not visible. That's why. Yeah.
after E there's F here. In my screen I can see whether I don't know whether you can't see because of your
Now I can
screen.
see, sir.
Right. So F is there in the answer. Okay, F is there. Right. So that's a very easy question, but you need to think a little bit strategically and determine what is this F is. Okay, so because it's connected to the sprint planning meeting for the next iteration, so that should be a sprint retrospective because the diagram can be drawn slightly differently. Right. So this is same diagram, but the second part briefly describe the purpose of A and D in the Scrum framework. So A contains all the user stories, so the user requirements, and it's a dynamic diagram owned by product owner. And D is the potentially shippable product increment. So that is your release, right? Which must be fully tested work increment. Okay. So you need to explain. Okay. Similar answers are acceptable. Right. So the next question, draw a graph to illustrate the relationship between the cost of differing and the cost of deciding. Remember, you can't take two decisions too early because then cost of deciding is high because your decision may not be accurate. If you make it too late, then your decision may be very accurate, but there's a cost of differing. Right? Okay, වෙලෙ හිතලා හරි අඳින්න ඕන. Right? So this is cost of deciding. Cost of deciding. If you too early, the cost of deciding is high because maybe it's not accurate. So then cost of differing goes like this because cost of delaying, the more you delay, the cost of delaying is high. So the ideally, it must be somewhere here because you need to say x plus y. So the x plus 5 is here. The sort of a minimum zone is somewhere here. So you need to explain like that. First, explain what is cost of deciding. Why is it high at the beginning? Because at the beginning you have less visibility, therefore your decision may not be very accurate. At the same time, when the time going by, your decision may be more and more accurate. So the cost is less on that decision. But because of the delaying, there is a cost of delay, postponing thing. So that is less at the beginning, but high at late time. So then you need to find the optimum point, which is somewhere in the middle. That is the right time to take the decision. Okay. Right. You need to draw it and explain it. Okay. Label the axis and curves appropriately. Indicate and label the optimal point. Right. That means you don't need to explain it. Just draw it properly. Label it. Label cost, time, cost of deciding, cost of delaying, and the least cost, least cumulative cost. Okay. So this is the best time. It's right. Looking back at the sprint execution is a less appreciated yet important practice. So that is sprint retrospective. Remember, some people don't take it seriously. Identify two useful questions that the team should direct their attention after the sprint conclusion. I think sprint conclusion is not the best word. Maybe sprint retrospective, right? Identify two useful questions that the team should direct their attention after sprint conclusion. I hope this sprint conclusion is sprint retrospective. Maybe what went wrong, what went really well, what kind of improvements we can do. I hope sprint conclusion is sprint retrospective. Okay. Some process improvements. Right. Again, the examiner sometimes use slightly confused words. Okay. Let's see what is examiner's answer. Yeah, what worked well, what didn't work well. Okay, what kind of improvements shall we do? Right. Fair. And you can see examiner has used slightly different word, but you need to guess it. So that is why you need bit of matured understanding, not just memorizing, so that you can do better guessing. Sometimes it may not work, but at least your probability is high. Right. So the next question. Not doing the sprint retrospective or low attendance is one of the issues that sprint retrospective might face. List two other sprint retrospective issues and briefly explain how to address one of them. Remember, right? We discussed about 10 issues, right? Low attendance is already mentioned, right? So likewise, there can be uh, you ignore the elephant in the room. So while there are bigger issues, they discuss about small issues. Then no coordination, no follow-ups, right? What else? It's all
Too
talks, no
ambitious,
actions. Sorry?
too ambitious.
Yeah, too ambitious, right? Yes. So then maybe you need to come up with a how to address. For example, uh, if no follow up, then you must have someone who is driving the meeting and do the follow up in the next meeting. Maybe Scrum Master, okay? Something like that. Okay. Right. So anything and then come up with a solution for that. Okay. Right. So that's it. That's it. So now we have done, actually we have done two topics there, right? That is introduction to Scrum, core concepts in Scrum. Okay. Right. So we'll take a small break and let's do the Scrum roles because we have already discussed, right? So therefore we can, otherwise we will take more time if you do it in the next class, right? So we'll take a small break. Now it's 11:38. Let's say 11:40. Let's start at 11:50 because we are going to have a small session, not a big session after the break. So let's start at 11:50.
So I have a doubt.
Yes.
What is the difference between too ambitious and old stuff, no stuff?
Too ambitious means you are too optimistic, right? That means you come up with too optimistic things. Maybe you are remember that diagrams I draw. Maybe you have a news team member having this kind of a mindset. So guy can be too ambitious. Or some people's character is like that, right? So that those things may be unrealistic things they mention, unrealistic expectation. But all fluff, no stuff means you talk but don't act. That is a different story. So that means people talk but don't act. Sometimes both can be overlapping, but sometimes it's not too ambitious, but for the sake of talking, people discuss things without taking any action. So discuss any practical things, right? Sometimes we can feel like, okay, this is talk is going on, but it's not a very productive discussion, right? It's not very practical discussion. But too ambitious means they come up with unrealistic expectations. Okay. Sometimes there can be overlappings. It's both. Some discussions may belong to both. Right. So let's continue after the break. Okay. Our next topic for Agile is that is Scrum roles. Right. So we have discussed much of these things. So therefore, I'll do it very fast. Right. Scrum roles. Now you know what are the three Scrum roles because we want to make things very simple. Therefore, we have only three roles. That is Scrum Master, Product Owner, and the team. So why we have only three roles? Because we want to make the process also simple, not too complicated with so many roles, right? And we need to have good collaboration, right? Maximum uh, communication and reduce conflicts. So that is why just three roles. And also the distinction of distinctive project manager is just to prevent unnecessary conflicts. Right. So as I told you, Scrum Master must be someone who can get the respect of the team genuinely. So therefore, he must be a smart person, intelligent person, talented person who can show how things are done. Okay. So because he need to play the role of a coach, servant leader, teacher, facilitator, right? Impedance remover, and so on. So that person must be some sort of experienced, competent, talented IT professional, right? Not just someone who like to control others, right? So these are the features, right? Servant leader, coach, facilitator, process authority. So the if there's any disagreement, so the final decision is with the Scrum Master. Impediment to obstacle remover, especially the Scrum Master can come in talk with higher management if there are any issues, even simple things like power cut or something. So then he must coordinate with the management, not the team members. How to get workarounds. Right? Interference shields. Interference shield means team may get some interference due to organizational activities, events. So then if there are critical deliverables or something, so the Scrum Master need to take actions and change agent. So because Scrum Master is a experienced person, he can influence others to for improvements in the process and so on. Especially take control of the project retrospective meetings and so on. Right? So remove obstacles, assist the team, coach the team, show how things are done in better way. Right? Make sure the team follows Scrum process because you need bit of guidance. Right? Initiate changes, improvements. So basically, Scrum Master is a leadership role, but not a traditional bossy role. So Scrum Master must be able to coach, right? Show them the better ways of doing things, right? Especially process related. Help the team to improve the process. And of course, Scrum Master is a servant leader, not a bossy leader. Scrum Master show how to do things better, not order. And of course, Scrum Master is the process authority. So the ultimate decisions are made by Scrum Master about the deadlines, which user stories to be to take up for the next sprint. So there must be final authority. Of course, these are team decisions, but someone need to take the final decision. So that authority is with the Scrum Master. That leadership should be coming from Scrum Master. So as I told you, if there are any interferences due to organizational or any other activities, so Scrum Master need to defend the team, right? Take the necessary actions, right? Impedance remover. If there are any impedances, something like lack of communication from the customer or any other things, like any other interruptions from other activities. So the Scrum Master need to take those, remove those things. And Scrum Master must be your change agent because some people resist to change. So then Scrum Master can do those by do those as a leader. So part of leadership is make things happen, change, take initiatives, motivate others to do the same. So therefore, Scrum Master's task is not predefined. Depending on the situations, his work may be different. Okay. Right. What are the characteristics of a Scrum Master? As I told you, he or she must be intelligent, competent, person who can get the respect of the team naturally. So he must be a knowledgeable, he must be a critical thinker, question everything. Then only we can improve things. At the same time, he must have the patience, collaborative, protective, like a servant leader, transparent. So he must have very good transparency. He must not work for hidden agendas. Basically, he must be a genuine person who get the genuine respect of the team, not a bossy person who try to demand respect. Okay. So sometimes Scrum Master can play multiple roles. While he is working on these leadership activities, maybe he can do bit of other work as well. But it should not be conflicting. Conflicting. Okay. Maybe he can involve in bit of designing, bit of development. And other thing is a Scrum Master can handle more than one team because this is not a full-time development work. Maybe Scrum Master is working with two Scrum teams, three Scrum teams. So then Scrum Master need to manage his time, make sure no conflicting meetings and so on. Okay. But there's something discouraged, that is same person playing the role of both Scrum Master and Product Owner. That is bad because Product Owner is owing the requirements, Scrum Master is supposed to make things happening. So ideally, product owner must be someone from the customer, or else a proxy product owner different from the Scrum Master. Because these are two major roles. So playing two major roles by the same person can be conflicting. But playing a minor role of a team member is okay. Right. So next, the product owner. So product owner set the product vision. Right. Go to person for the development team to for the clarifications. Product backlog is owned by product owner. Product owner need to coordinate with other stakeholders. Right? Product owner set the business goals. Product owner own the final product. Okay. And product owner provide feedback on the product releases. So ideally, product owner must be a senior manager from the customer side, something like a IT manager of the customer side. Or if not, we can have proxy product owner, but that proxy product owner need to closely collaborate with the real product owner. So what are the product owner's tasks? Set the product vision, owns the user requirements or user stories, prioritize the user stories, provide clarification to the team members. That is, he is the go-to person for requirement clarifications. Negotiate with other stakeholders about budget and so on, and provide feedback on the deliverables, sprint reviews. Right. So product owner can play multiple roles. That means within the product owner, not conflicting with product owner role. So maybe product owner play the role of the product manager, business analyst, and part tester. Remember, product owner need to give feedback on releases like user acceptance testing. Okay. So product owner is the product manager, owns the product. At the end, the product or the system must contribute to the success of the business. So it's not just delivering something, right? Delivering a system that really help achieving the business objectives of the organization. So that is why product owner need to play the role of the product manager and manage economics, that is cost aspects. cost financial feasibility, groom the product backlog, participate in planning like sprint planning, collaborate with the development team, collaborate with the stakeholders, define the acceptance criteria and verify, that is sprint review, provide feedback on releases. So product owner need to manage economics, cost benefits, release level, sprint level, product backlog economics. Product owner need to involve in some planning. Of course, the main planning is Scrum Master, but product related planning like portfolio planning, make sure the product contribute to the business success of the organization. So you need to plan out how your the product contribute to the business success. In the product planning, what kind of features, what is the product vision, what are the features, release planning, how are we going to get the product gradually built, start date, end date, release dates, and provide input to the sprint planning, especially what user stories we need for the next sprint. Okay. And of course, the product owner is the key person for product grooming, product backlog grooming, where product owner update the team members about the changes to the user stories. Not only that, estimating effort for the user stories, prioritizing. So you need to get the input from the team, but product owner need to take the leadership in these discussions or coordinate with the Scrum Master and the team. And of course, the product owner need to define the acceptance criteria for each release and verify in the sprint reviews. So that is why product owner play a part tester role as well. So the product owner need to collaborate with the team. Okay? It's a continuous collaboration. So the objective is product owner continuously collaborate with the team. That is why we consider product owner as a member of the team. So in traditional software development, there's a high collaboration with the customer, with the team at the beginning. Then all of a sudden, team is not collaborating with the customer. Then there's another collaboration at the user acceptance level. So only at the beginning and at end, there's a collaboration. Middle, almost no collaboration. So that is bad. But with the product owner becoming a member of the team, product owner attending at least the daily Scrum meetings, so there's a continuous collaboration, which is good. And every release, product owner provide feedback, so it's continuous collaboration. That is why product owner role is super important. And product owner need to collaborate with other stakeholders, especially from the customer side, their management. Okay. So it's huge responsibility. That is why we need a senior manager from the customer side to take this product owner role, who has a very good understanding about the business process, business portfolio, who can take own decisions, who can directly talk to the higher management of the customer side. Okay. Right. So then there's a possibility of single product owner versus product owner team. So ideally, single product owner is best because then see you can take direct decisions and so on. But if the product is so complicated, it's a very big product like ERP solution, maybe we can have product owner team, but this is very rare. So product owner team is required when you can't find a single person to take the product leadership, product vision, because the product is so complicated, or you need input from maybe multiple parties. Otherwise, there will be conflict. Then you can have product owner team. Again, ideally they must be coming from the customer side, or maybe mixture of customer side then business and experts from developer side. But in that case also you need to have a main person, chief product owner. Otherwise, there will be issues. Okay. So then you can have product owner proxy. Anyway, product owner proxy can be for even single product owners. Chief product owner, product line owners, feature product owner. That means that product owner is expert in a particular area like security. Security related things, maybe that is the key person. Okay. Right. So the rest of the team members, that their role is just we say team role, development, testing, modeling, requirement analysis. Okay. So anyone other than product owner and scrum master. Okay. So they involve in design, development, testing, deployment, right? So perform the sprint execution, inspect and adapt each day's work. If there are any clarification required, get it involved in product room meetings, inspect and adapt the product and process. So that is why they involved in project retrospective meetings. So in Scrum, each team member is active team member. They are not just doing coding, not just doing testing. So they are all rounders. They involve bit of uh, planning. They directly communicate with the customer or the product owner. ඉස්සර එහෙම නෑ ටීම් මෙම්බර්ස්ලා හංගන්න පුළුවන් අපිට ඉංග්‍රීසි බැරි අය බෑක් එන්ඩ් එකේ කෝඩ් කරනවා. මේ දැන් බෑ. So everyone need to discuss things directly with the other, especially customer. So everyone need to attend the meetings. So meeting එකේ කතා කරන්න බෑ කියලා අපිට එක්කෙනෙක්ව ටීම් එකට නොගෙන ඉන්න බෑ එතකොට. එහෙම ටීම් මෙම්බර්ස්ලා ඉන්න බෑ. daily stand up meeting එකේ කතා කරන්නේ නැති ටීම් මෙම්බර්ස්ලා කියලා જાතිය. So that is why communication skills are super important. So we can't hide team members now. ඒක හරියට දැන් ටෙස්ට් මැච් වල සමහර ෆීල්ඩින් පොසිෂන්ස් තියෙනවා බෝලේ එන්නේ කලාතුරකින්. හැබැයි T20 වල එහෙම ෆීල්ඩින් එච්චර හොඳ නැති කෙනෙක්ව හංගන්න බෑ ග්‍රවුන්ඩ් එකේ. හැමෝම හොඳ ෆීල්ඩින් කරන්න. ෆීල්ඩර්ස්ලා වෙන්න. Right. So that is why the development team members must be self-organized. So your team members must be able to do everything without external help. That means your team members, collection of your team members must be able to handle everything. T-shape skills, I already mentioned, right? T-shape. So that means you are expert in some areas, but other areas you must be a general person. You can't say, I don't know anything about these things. No, you must have some idea about these things and expert in certain things. So that is called T-shaped. Every team member must have T-shaped skills. Master in some areas while reasonable understanding about the other tasks. And it must be cross-functional, diverse, and sufficient. So as a team, we should be able to do everything. Long-lived කියන්නේ we try to keep the team as a team for long period because they know how to work together. They know each other. පරණ කතන්දරේදී උනේ ප්‍රොජෙක්ට් එකක් වුණාම ටීම් එක හතර අතේ කඩන් වැටෙනවා. ඊට පස්සේ ඒගොල්ලෝ වෙන වෙන ටීම් වලට යනවා. ඕක තමයි පරණ විදිය. ඒතර අලුතෙන් ටීම් එකක් හදනකොට එක එක ටීම් වල හිටිය නැත්නම් අලුත් අය තමයි එකතු වෙන්නේ ආයේ. So that is not a very good thing to do. So the new idea, new concept is if you have a team which successfully deliver project try to keep the team for the new project, separate project. ඒ ටීම් එකම පුළුවන් අපි ඊළඟ ප්‍රොජෙක්ට් එකට ආයෙ යන්න. සමහර වෙලාවට ටික දෙනෙක් එහාට මෙහාට වෙනවා. නමුත් තනිකර කඩලා ආයෙ හදන්න එපා. Because in project management you will learn the team dynamics. Team dynamics වල තියෙනවා storming හරි. ඉස්සෙල්ලා ප්‍රශ්න එනවා team members ලා අතර. ඊට පස්සේ settle වෙනවා. ඊට පස්සේ දැන් perform කරන්න පටන් ගන්නවා. So team කඩලා ආයෙ හදනකොට ආයෙ ඔය life cycle එක යනවා. That is waste of time. So therefore if you have good stable team, maybe the project is over. Then use that team for another project. Long lived. High bandwidth communication. So it's very open communication within the team members. Right? So these are very interesting points. Musketeer attitude. ඔක තමයි සමුපකාර ව්‍යාපාරයේ motto එක නේ. Corporate norm. One for all for one. So that means one for all means, right? You are there to help each other. As a one, you help possibly each other, everyone. You are willing to help everyone whenever you have time. So then what happened? So when you help, whenever you have time to each other, everyone, when you need help, there's everyone helping you. That is a very nice concept, right? So when you help others, when you are in trouble, when you need trouble, there's everyone there to help you. So that means you don't isolate, right? Because sometimes you need help from others. So that is called musketeer attitude. One for all for one. Right size. Your team must not be too big, just about 3 to 9, not more than 10. Transparent communication. Works at sustainable pace. දරා ගන්න පුළුවන් ප්‍රමාණයට වැඩ කරන්න. Not overloading, not team burnout. Focus and committed. So that is why we need self-motivated team members. Right. Right. So there are different team structures. Two different approaches we can use. What are those? Feature team versus component team. Right. So agile development prefer feature teams. Feature team means your team members are cross-functional, cross-component. So that means your team can handle multiple things. So your team can handle different domains, different technologies, right? So that is what we need in agile development. So that means your team members are also all-rounders. And you have a good variety within your team so that you can handle everything as a team. So Scrum favors feature teams. Okay. What is the other type of teams? Component teams. Component teams means they are experts in one area, maybe one domain, one technology. So then they need help from other teams. Or you need a collaboration of teams. We need a high collaboration within the team, but at the same time, the team must be able to do everything without other external help. So therefore, what we prefer in agile development is feature teams, not component teams, just focusing on one area or functionality or one domain. Right. So sometimes, yes, we prefer to have the feature teams who can do everything about the product. But sometimes when the product is too big, right? So remember, we go for only about maximum 9 team members. If there are a lot of functionalities, If you go for a one team, it may take a lot of time, maybe 2, 3 years to finish the product. So in that kind of a situation, what we can do is rather than increasing the team size, ඔගොල්ලෝ විශ්වාස කරන එක නැහැ මම සමහර ප්‍රොජෙක්ට් වල වැඩ කරලා දිනවා සමහර ප්‍රොජෙක්ට් වල කියන්නේ ඇජයිල් වලට කලින් ප්‍රොජෙක්ට් එකේ ඉන්න ටීම් මෙම්බර්ස්ලා ඉන්නවා සමහරට 25 30ක්. But the new concept is then divide it into 3, 4 project teams in Agile. In Agile, because it's too many people in a single team is difficult to manage. So then you can go for multiple teams working on the same product. But then there must be very good coordination between the team because it's the same code base. There can be a lot of dependencies, blocking factors. One team depends on the task of another team. So then you need to manage and coordinate those teams. So in order to coordinate that, we use some concepts. One is Scrum of Scrums. Second concept is release train. Release train. Right. So those things we can discuss in the next class because I have another session because we need to do some past paper questions as well. We'll discuss that in the next time when we do Agile, right? So therefore, we have not finished the third topic for today, but we are in the halfway, okay? Because otherwise, I will not be able to start the afternoon session, okay, for the other batch, okay? Right. So today we discuss mainly the Agile only. Actually, we didn't do any project management today, but we have covered almost half of the syllabus now. And the other half is actually, you can see again, there's a topic called sprint. These things we can do now very fast because most of these we have done already discussed in a fairly good length. Okay. Right. So next class, most probably we want to concentrate on technical subjects like EAD and computer networks. Okay. Right. We'll stop at this point. Thank you.